Good?
When you're ready.
Yeah. My own account doesn't recognize me as the owner.
Okay.
Fascinating. Here we go. Rover. Dave, are you still connected to the rover?
Don't think so.
Won't let me in.
Hang on, let me look.
I'm gonna hit source or something.
Screen mirroring.
No, we were just using it. We just literally just tested his computer.
But
You're into Zoom, you just can't
Yeah,
get it up
Zoom's
there.
on. We're fine. You can go and I'll just figure out.
I,
We were going back and forth, so.
I don't believe that I am.
Okay.
It would be showing up there if I'd.
Yeah.
It didn't show up for you, Eric, or you just can't sign on to
It
it?
won't let me into the rover.
Oh,
Go ahead.
All right, well, yeah, we'll get started. As long as you're on the Zoom.
You're on Zoom.
Okay.
Zoom's on. You're ready to go.
All right. All right, good evening. At this time, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee on Thursday, May 2nd, 2024 at 7:03 PM. And I will begin by asking you, or inviting you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, just as a reminder to everyone that this evening, the meeting is being recorded and live streamed on HWCam and on YouTube. And we're just working out a technical issue to make sure that we have our Zoom link projected up onto the screen there. Okay. All right, so,
Restart. It's always the problem.
all right, so first up on our agenda, we have an opportunity for citizens' comments. And Mr. Tracy, it doesn't look like we have anyone on Zoom, so I'll address the people in the room. Citizens' comments, if you do wish to offer a comment, I'm going to ask that you step up to the podium and state your name and your address, and if you would, to spell your name so that we get it correct for the minutes. I asked you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Julia, would you be willing to be our timekeeper? And Julia, I just ask that you just give a 30 seconds heads up when they are approaching that time moment. And then just please do remember that this is an opportunity for you to be heard. It is our opportunity to listen to what you have to say and you to be heard. It's not a back and forth or a dialogue. All right, it looks like we have our first citizen at the podium. Please start.
Yes, thank you. My name's Rick Mitchell, 36.
Hold on, I just want to make sure your microphone's on. Can we?
Is this on?
I'm not sure that it is.
The light is on.
I think it's on.
Is it on? Okay, all right.
Sounds
There.
like
Yep,
it.
no, I think
Sounds
that's
like it.
better. Yep, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My name's Rick Mitchell, 36 Rock Maple Ave, Hamilton, a 32-year resident of the town of Hamilton. I'm here tonight because I watched the last school committee session, and I was concerned that because you saw and heard from a few dozen people that were opposed to the Cutler selection, that suddenly you were calling into question the whole decision-making process that's been going on for over 5 years. And actually, I thought you kind of threw the school building committee under the bus by questioning the integrity of those people. So on a personal note, I want to sympathize with the kind of opposition that put you in a hot seat tonight. As a recently retired planning board member for 22 years, I too many times faced a blistering public and private criticism and attacks over my position on projects before the board. So I sympathize greatly with the kind of position you're in and the kind of opposition you see. So I'm here tonight to say, really take heart and remember the people you are hearing from represent only a very small minority of the 8,300 tax-paying citizens of Hamilton and Wenham. For better or worse, the kind of opposition you've heard and will hear in increasing intensity goes with the territory. I don't want you guys to back down or doubt your decision-making or your judgment. You have a process. I think you ought to stick with it and not be intimidated when you see a concerted effort by a small minority of people to oppose the process or the decisions that you make. First, I want to say I wholeheartedly support the funding of a single school at Cutler, as recommended by the building committee. My wife and I do not have kids, yet over the last 32 years, we've consistently supported paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in property taxes, 60 to 70% of which go to the school system. And we do this because we believe in paying it forward to the next generation. And I also want to counter that argument, oh, this is going to ruin the town, it's going to ruin the neighborhood.
30 seconds, sorry.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep going for a bit more. Second, the economics of the building at one school at Cutler alone are compelling. At $150 million versus $200 million for renovating the Winthrop Cutler School at today's cost, if we stop now and fail to act, we will forfeit $50 million or more, and delay will cost tens of millions of dollars in the future. Third, and this is a Hamilton resident speaking, we are paying double for educating students because 70% of the land occupied by the regional school system are in Hamilton, and and they are tax exempt. This on top of the taxes we pay to support the schools, which really represents an unfair burden on the Hamilton taxpayers. Now, I will be finished in a minute, but I think these are important for you guys to hear, and there's not a lot of people that are standing in line. So freeing up the 14-acre town-owned land at Winthrop will realize a substantial windfall from selling the land and future tax revenues once it's developed. And these actually can help pay off the bond cost for a new school at Cutler. And Hamilton elected officials and boards have taken a definitive stand on Winthrop versus Cutler. Unanimously, the Select Board and FinCom in Hamilton have stated they want Winthrop site back to generate tax revenue. That's why the Hamilton School Board and the school committee, I guess, approved and signed a short-term contract for Winthrop and a 50-year contract for
Mr.
Cutler.
Mitchell, I am going to need to wrap it up for the 3 minutes.
Okay, so I'll wrap this up. The survey that you voted to support, well, I understand why you're doing that, because you don't think that you've heard enough from the public. Well, typically in a survey, you get a 2 to 3% response. Well, 8,300 voters, that means you're going to get 166 to 249 people. And this subject is so complex, educationally, financially, structurally, architecturally, that you can't do a survey and ask people to have an intelligent response to answer a very complex question. So you're going to get a 2 to 3% response.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
And one more. And so I fear what you're going to get is, the people that have already made a decision one way or the other, you're not going to get the other 98% of the voters to
Thank you.
So I just urge you to stay the course and support the building committee as it was voted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anna Seidzik, 227 Highland. Thank you so much for hearing my comment. I would like to echo what Mr. Mitchell said. I completely understand your position. I think anyone who knows me knows that's true, so I understand it's difficult to be in the face of public criticism. I'd like to offer 4 comments after last week's meeting. The first is sort of procedural, and I would just like to note on the record, because I don't think it's been publicly disclosed voluntarily, that school committee member Trent Honda lives on Woodland Mead, and although he may not meet the legal definition of an abutter with 300 feet, Woodland Mead has a private solitary driveway that abuts the Cutler School, and I think anyone looking at his situation would agree that he has the appearance of a conflict of interest, which is what the ethical disclosures, which is what the condition of unbiased perspective requires. So I hereby call on Mr. Honda to further recuse himself from further conversation. He's an abutter in a more casual sense, and he lives on Woodland Mead, and everyone understands the proximity of Woodland Mead to the Cutler site. So I just want to note that for the record. Secondly, I would call on any one of the school committee members who voted in the affirmative last week to pursue the survey to offer a motion to reconsider, which is allowed under Robert's rules, because I think you should reconsider. I think the survey, like Mr. Mitchell said, I agree, will not provide you any new meaningful data. I don't think you'll get a sample that reflects the actual will of the people. I think you're going to hear from the supporters, people like me, and the people who are opposed, the people you're already hearing from. I think it's a waste of our time and our energy and our money, and I actually don't think it's going to help. I also think it's going to potentially derail the process that has been started. So I would call upon a member of the committee to be brave and offer a motion to reconsider, which you can do under your process. My third point is to support the superintendent and the school building committee and the teachers and the town people who are on it. I think to call into question that decision-making process and the way that was done, specifically to call into question the objectivity and the demeanor and the diplomacy of the superintendent was truly unfair. I have been on this committee, and I know that Eric is doing a bang-up job and has consistently gotten excellent reviews, and I think it was very unfair that his integrity was called into question by Mr. Honda, but I also think it was a bit unfair that no one stood up for him in that moment, or the school building committee, who have studied this project in great detail for more than a year.
30 seconds.
A very, thank you, reasonable decision. I think it's time for you to take a step back from the public fire and think about who's on your building committee, who those people are. They're not wallflowers. Vinny's not a wallflower. Allison Goodchild is a teacher, not a wallflower. And then you have people like John McGrath and Tom Myers and the town administrators. These are not people that Eric is going to bowl over. I think you need to honor their process and their decision-making position and sell this project, which is the best thing for the district and for the community. If you're going to spend $100 million, you might as well get a brand new state-of-the-art school for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Natalie Hildreth, 121 Linden Street in Hamilton. Whoa, this moves. Okay. Thank you for your time and your full-time work on behalf of the schools. I truly do appreciate it. I also ask that Mr. Honda recuse himself from any votes going forward on a school site at Cutler, of which he is a abutter on Woodland Mead. I'd also like the board to reconsider the hard and time-consuming work and final vote of the school building committee for this MSBA opportunity. Mr. Honda's statement of bias and the implication of intimidation of the school building committee is not only inaccurate, but an oversimplification and an insult to the members of our school community. The committee was made up of teachers, principals, various board members, and residents from both towns. Watch any previous school committee meeting attended by teachers and the union. Teachers and principals have no problem telling you what they think, including to the superintendent. A new consolidated school at the Cutler site for all first and fifth graders would cost an estimated $1.39 million. Renovating and adding a wing to Cutler, benefiting only Cutler students, would cost about $1 million. It takes 5 to 10 years to go through the MSBA process and have a new school ready. That's thousands of kids that would go through their elementary years at Bucher and Winthrop as they stand now. makeshift classrooms on stages and hallways, inadequate heating and ventilation, no cooling, and lackluster buildings that haven't been updated in 20-plus years. Not to mention a high school that will also need updating or replacing soon. To see woefully outdated school buildings throughout the town is indicative of what the community prioritizes. Please reconsider the work that the school building committee has already done and make it your priority to educate the public about a consolidation. Polling voters now is like trying to sell a house without letting people see any pictures of it or have any meaningful details or specs on the property. Let's not waste time polling an uneducated public, but rather educate them about the benefits. Data supports a consolidated option because it is a fiscally wise, long-term solution for both towns. It would also improve our awful busing situation, create cross-student integration, combine resources and collaboration for teachers, increase after-school opportunities. Think of what we could offer on Wednesdays to working parents.
30 seconds.
And allow for more preschool classrooms. But most of all, it will benefit all the elementary students and teachers of this district at once. This is what's fair and equitable to our kids, teachers, and administrators, and it's what they deserve.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Michelle Horgan, 141 School Street. Thank you, school committee, for the work you are doing. We really appreciate it. I'm here in support of the project, Consolidated School, and I feel I represent the people that you're not hearing from that are in support. I've been in town for 30 years. My husband and I had 4 children, still have 4 children, adults now, and they were all raised in the district. When my oldest started Winthrop School in 2001, it was a tired school. When my youngest left the school in 2014, the only addition that was added were rain buckets when the rains came and we needed in the hallway. Many, like me, are still in town and believe that public education is the foundation of our society, and we need to support a new school to support the next generation of children. Change is very difficult, we all know that, but it's needed to grow. And I feel for those that are afraid of what might be happening, but you can't stay still. We need to change, and you as school committee members need to know that the district has our children's benefit as a top priority, and they are the professionals. They know what's best, and they should be listened to and not be second-guessed. Lastly, I want to commend, as I did in my email to everyone this week, Superintendent Tracy. He's been in the district since 2013. He shepherded 4 of my children through high school. I worked with him on the school committee, and having lived through 7 superintendents in 20 years, Superintendent Tracy is what we need to keep the ship in the right direction. This district cannot afford to have any other, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but we need a steady ship, a steady hand at the helm, and he's the person. So please, please, what happened last week should not happen again. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm guessing there's no other public comment in the room, is that correct? Mr. Tracy, do we have anyone who wants to offer a public comment on Zoom?
We'll be on Zoom.
Okay. At this time, I'll go ahead and close the citizens' comments, and we'll close that Zoom link. Thank you all to, as always, we're always appreciative of citizens who are willing to come out and share publicly your views, and it gives us an opportunity to listen. So thank you. And now, next up, I have a review of a portion of our school committee protocols. And again, I used to be really more on top of that.
I can read it.
And Julia looks like she wants that one. Thank you. Amy, would you read a portion that's on the second page?
Sure. As elected members of the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School Committee, we, including the superintendent, accept the high honor and trust that has been placed in us to ensure that the students of the district receive the best education possible. To that end, we hereby commit to the following in the conduct of our business. Number 12, the school committee recognizes the importance of working collaboratively with town officials and actively seeking their support to improve the district.
Thank you. Julia, would you read a portion of the school committee mission statement, please?
The Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee will lead and inspire a district that supports and guides the superintendent to execute and achieve the approved 2023-2024 district goals.
Thank you. That was your opportunity to gesture to the goals.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Next up is our consent agenda. Does anyone have any items on the consent agenda that they would like to hold?
I do.
Amy?
I'd like to hold the minutes from April 25th.
Okay. Anything else? All right. David, do you have a motion for us?
Sure. I move the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District accept the consent agenda minus the minutes from April 25th as written in the school committee agenda for tonight.
Second.
Second by Amy. All those in favor? That is unanimous of the 6 members present, and the motion passes. Amy, you held the minutes from April 25th.
It's just clerical. The numbering is off, and so .8 should be .5, and the rest, and we also misspelled Jake Collins's last name in the description of the student representative report.
Okay, I just want to make, so Jake Collins' name is spelled incorrectly, and the numbering you're talking about is out of order, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Someone want to make a motion on that? Or, I'm sorry, is there anyone else that has anything else to add about that before we do that?
No.
Right. Do you want to make a motion?
Sure. I move that we approve the minutes from April 25th with the correction outlined previously.
Second.
Second by Julia Campbell. Is there discussion? I have a quick question. Do you have the accurate spelling of Jake Collins' name?
It's in, so the title is correct, and then in the description.
Oh,
there's
in the
correct-
body of the,
Yep,
okay.
in the
I
body.
was going to say that, I'm like, I read it right. I'm like trying to look it up now. I'm like, no, I read
Keep
it right.
reading.
Yeah, no, I was looking at it and I was like, that's how I would spell that name, so, but I understand it's
Did
in
the
the
same
text,
thing.
later on in the text. Okay.
Right?
Good pickup.
All right, so, so can you just share where it is, just so that our recording secretary can
Just
see?
under student representative report, 8 should say 5, and the second instance of Collins should remove the,
Okay.
or should be corrected.
Okay. All right. We're ready to vote? All those in favor? And that is unanimous of the members present, and the motion passes. And we'll get those edits done. Okay. Next up on the agenda, we have the NEASC report, and I believe Mr. Menegoni is going to
Agonia's here.
speak with us.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here tonight. I just wanted to quickly present to you the NEASC letter that was issued to us in mid-April about our continued accreditation. The way this works is that we were renewed with our accreditation well over a year ago as a result of the decennial visit that took place in winter of 2022. However, you're expected to do a progress report after 1 year of that initial accreditation reporting. And really what they're looking for is to see if you have a school improvement plan that's responsive to some of the recommendations that they made, and have you made any progress on the foundational elements. And the foundational elements are part of the NEASC evaluation structure that they expect all schools to meet in order to continue their accreditation. So we're pleased to say again that we were again rewarded with continued accreditation, and really this memo highlights a few commendations that I'd just like to bring to everybody's attention. First of all, our DECA chapter, which actually is the largest in the state, according to participation, based on the percentage of the total student population, and just the level of involvement that the students get to experience as a result of being in the DECA program. The fact that they get to travel all over the place, and they just returned from California last night, so there were some tired kids and a tired teacher this morning as a result of that. But they had a great time in California. It's a wonderful experience, and we have over 250 of our students participating in that program, so over 50%. The other thing that NEASC talked about was community building. That's actually part of our school improvement plan this year. You know, how can we foster continued relationships between student, staff, but also reaching out into the community as well. They cited our student government. They're very active. They meet every week, coming up with different activities and things for our kids to do to bring the school together. There are a number of community service outreach efforts. Habitat for Humanity, we partnered with them this year to work on property off of Highland Street. HW Gives Back is our charitable giving arm that's able to donate to various charities around the community. We've also made a point to start really displaying student work around the building. We've taken advantage of the video displays and we were able to fund those through the Ed Fund grant that we got last year. But we've also recently purchased and installed a number of display boards around the building, and teachers have taken to signing up for time so that way they can display the work that the students have done in class, because we believe that audience actually enhances performance. They're going to have a more polished work, I think, if they know others' eyes are going to be on it as they move through the hallway. Those were the commendations. The commission did note that 5 of the 6 foundational elements were met, which is good. We wanted to make sure we're up to date on those. But they did note that there was one foundational element related to facilities that continues to be rated by us as not met. And specifically, we're talking about the athletic facilities there. That's because the project has not started yet or gone to completion. I would anticipate that we will look at that particular foundational element differently once that project is in progress and completed, hopefully next spring or early fall. Our next step with NEASC after that, in a couple of years, we have to submit a 3-year report of progress and planning, in addition to giving them an updated school improvement plan every year, because they want to make sure that we are on target with their foundational elements. They want an update where we are with respect to those. They also want to hear, are there any exemplary practices that we would like to share with other high schools in Massachusetts and New England as well. So we'll be submitting that in 2026. And then 2030 is the next collaborative conference, which is really the deep dive into what's going on in the school. And that's kind of when the accreditation cycle resets and begins again. So although it seems like a ways off, it actually creeps up on you pretty quickly. And I think that, you know, one of the major challenges for us being in an old building like that is maintaining the facilities, updating them, providing the kids with the best possible learning spaces, you know, within the confines of having a place that was built in 1962, because that's something that the commission is going to continue to take a very close look at, is the community providing the kids with what they need to learn. So that's my synopsis of the letter that we received in mid-April from NEASC about our updated accreditation. I will take any questions if you have them.
Thank you very much. All right. Questions for Mr. Menegodi? Okay. Thank you.
All right.
I appreciate that. It was thorough with no questions. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Can I say one
Absolutely.
thing? I think it's important to note the level of work that goes into the accreditation process, not only by the administration. Every teacher in the building is involved in some way, shape, or form. Students are involved. In fact, they're doing work right now to really help us to realize the portrait of the graduate. So every Wednesday, teachers are working on finding ways to be able to highlight the portrait of the graduate within things that are happening within the school and classrooms and things like that, so that they can make it come alive, if you will, as part of the accreditation process. So you have something measurable, like what does it mean to be a good communicator? The high school staff is currently working through the process of one at a time of the portrait to be able to say, this is what it means to be a good communicator when you're at the high school or when you're in the school district. And I think that work is connected all the way back to when I first got here. I inherited okay, you're doing NEASC this year. And I think it's important to note that people within the school district go out to other schools and spend 4 days straight, and you work from 7 in the morning till 10 or 11 at night writing reports for other schools. So the nice thing is you get to see perspectives from other schools and other school districts, bring them back to your own, and then other schools do that for us as well through the accreditation process. So it's a really unique process. It's a great way to be able to align some things, to get some things done, but also to, I think, bring some unity across the high school and even into the middle school. There's a lot of things that they share that they're working on. So I appreciate the work that Mr. Menegoni has done, taking that through the entire writing of the initial report, meeting with the committees, getting everybody situated, and now getting to the one-year report is a big deal. So thank you, Mr. Menegoni, and thank you to the high school staff and faculty and students who are also involved.
Thank you. Okay. All right. The next item of business is the school building committee formation discussion. And I would like to, we have a motion to start this discussion. Is that correct? Okay. Amy's going to offer a motion.
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee approves the school building committee as currently constituted.
Second.
Second by Julia Campbell. Just make sure that I restate the motion, and then I'm going to offer some information. So the motion was to vote to approve the school building committee as currently constituted?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so if I may, I'm going to offer a little bit of information, and I'm hoping that Mr. Tracy would be willing to offer some information as well. Eric, I'm good if I start?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it's come to our attention that when we were forming the school building committee as part of the MSBA process back in June of 2022, so nearly 2 years ago, it's come to our attention that we were given some incorrect guidance. When Eric and I created the agenda, at that time, we didn't realize, we were specifically told, you can see in the exhibit there, that the school committee didn't need to formally vote on the composition of that school building committee. We've since come to our attention that we really should have taken a vote. Mr. Tracy at that meeting did present the information to everyone, the list, and he and explained how it was being constituted. Again, he and I thought that we were doing the right thing, and turns out that it was the responsibility of the school committee to take a vote. I have more information, but if anyone needs it, but taking this vote today would correct that. Eric, do you have other things to add?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to put it out there that the original committee of over 20 people was presented back in June 14th on 2022 meeting. There was some discussion about roles, voting rights, things like that. In fact, I think Ms. Cizik suggested that several people who we had originally had said didn't have voting rights should have voting rights. There was no dissent, so we moved forward and gave them voting rights as members of that committee, and several of them are still on the committee to this day. And I just think it's important to know that the emails that I sent to the school building committee to inquire about that came back as there is no formal vote on the membership. There's no formal vote for that. So taking that advice and moving forward. I believe I stated in that meeting that the school committee does not have to take a vote, given that information. So in the information supplied tonight, are the emails from, between me and the school building committee, and then the iteration of the committee over the years, 2 years now it's been, where people have dropped off, some people have moved in, depending on who's on. For example, FinCom, when memberships change or chairs change, we're changing people out. So I just wanted to be open and make sure that people understood where I got my information from to bring to the committee and say, hey, this we don't need a vote on it. I did talk to the emailed the MSBA. And really, it just gives us the opportunity to solidify, the people that are on the committee now. And I will say again, the majority of them have served for the entire time that we initially constituted the committee. So there hasn't been this huge change. There's been a lot of drop-off, and that is normal, having been through this process before. Some people will jump in and say, I can do this, but then all of a sudden you're meeting once or twice a month, and like, I can't do that, I can't keep up with it. So there have been a number of drop-offs and a number of changes. And somebody asked me a question last week about non-voting members. There are 2 non-voting members. They are both FinCom members, and that is because that's what their bylaws state. In both communities, FinCom members cannot be voting members. They can be sitting members, but they don't have any ability to vote. So that's just kind of explains where we are right now.
So is there discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's really important. I want to get on the record that, Mr. Tracy and, Dana were correct in, we're following the guidelines as, we met all the requirements as the MSBA required, where we ended up dropping the ball as a, school committee is the fact that when we create, as part of our bylaws, when we create a subcommittee, that we actually want to put that to a vote. And like I said, that's usually something that I tend to throw out there because, again, I tend to like to err on the side of caution in that, let's vote on that even if we don't need to. So it was really surprising when this came up. I do also want to note right now, though, that I think the way this sort of came about and was presented to, the district and the committee as a whole is a really dangerous precedent. I think that if there was a question about process that ever came up, that, we should, as, elected officials who do elect our own governance board, right, with a chair, excuse me, and a vice chair, that we go up the chain of command and say, hey, you know what, I think we overlooked something here. Maybe we should look into checking this out and asking legal counsel if we did this correct, right? To supersede chain of command is in violation of our own protocols, which, I think I see on the agenda coming up, right? And again, it's a very dangerous precedent to set, right? We don't want to make ourselves look bad. We are here as a team. We don't need to agree on everything, but we do need to be cordial and actually respect the process, right? So I just wanted to mention that because I was very, very, very surprised to actually get, an answer back from council that did not go through the usual channels. I would never think to speak to anyone on behalf of the committee without checking it with Dana and Eric first, even if it's something as simple as, giving Vinny a call about something that he tells me I can call him about all the time. I respect the process, right? When he takes time out of his day to speak to me, that's time that he's being taken away from, doing the job that we, have hired him to do. So it's important to keep that in mind.
Thank you. Is there other discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say I did call you.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
Sorry, I did call you before consulting the lawyer and asked whether it was okay to go to the lawyer, that I had a concern, and you said, basically, I trust you.
So that is,
Not that I feel I have to defend myself, but
it's
just
accurate.
to be clear.
It's accurate that David did call me. hesitant to characterize the conversation as me having a full understanding of what it was that you were going to be addressing. So
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it at that.
The one other comment, when I'd only just joined the committee when this was tabled originally, and the way it was framed,
I'm sorry, what was tabled?
the composition of the, I think it back
Presented, you mean, not table? You
Yeah,
mean
sorry,
Ye-
presented.
Yeah.
And the way it was presented was that basically that the MSBA had defined exactly how this should be. It was deterministic, and that we had no vote. So I kind of tuned it out at that point. I said, well, no, I'm not going to have any vote. And then subsequently, Eric stated that there would be an up and down vote. Then after, sometime after that, he said that there wouldn't be, that we wouldn't have a vote at all. And then more recently, he said that we had.
Are you, because the motion on the table is regarding the constitution of the school building
Yeah.
committee. Are you talking about voting on the school building committee?
On
On the
I'm speaking
composition
to-
of the school building committee?
Yeah, because I don't think, that at least I don't feel I had any say in the composition. So there was not a discussion about it.
so-
It was a dictate.
So to be clear, and I want to take responsibility, I was the chair at that time. Eric and I created that agenda. It was very clearly stated. I have watched the 6 minutes of that meeting more times than I can count now. It is very clearly stated that it was Eric's belief and mine, as Eric, I don't know if you can put that memo up, but in the exhibit, Eric has letters from the MSBA which actually say you do not need a vote. That was how we went and checked out whether or not we needed a vote.
Yeah.
So,
That was according to their
excuse
rules,
me.
not necessarily ours.
correct.
Sorry,
I'm,
yeah.
I'm,
Go ahead,
So-
sorry.
at that time, that was the information that we had. The MSBA, which this is what they do, right? They gave us information. They said, look, if you have local bylaws that tell you how to do this, we do not have local bylaws, and therefore, we moved forward. I take David Polito's point that oftentimes we take votes just to be certain, and we did not in this case. I will say, I feel really comfortable, again, having watched the 6 minutes over and over again, I feel really comfortable that I gave ample time for members to speak, members to ask questions, members to offer dissent, and members to offer to say that they wanted to vote. And they didn't. In fact, the only substantive comment that it was made by one member, that member suggested that they wanted to empower teachers and administrators to have voting rights, I guess, and that was discussed, and there was no dissent. So
And
I guess I want to make sure we remember that the motion on the table is as recommended in the letter that we received, that you requested. The remedy is the motion that Amy just made. That was what was recommended.
To be clear, that was only one of the things. There was several
We
alternatives.
might not be done yet.
Yes,
I don't know what she's going to do next, but I imagine we all read the same document.
yes, yeah.
I also just want to point out in the exhibit, there's frequent times when the district
I can't,
sends out a memo saying, someone has left the committee, the building committee, somebody has joined. So, I would feel also, if I were in charge of this project, that all these check-ins with MSBA would give me confidence that we're continuing to do the right thing as far as the constitution of this group. Just sort of a note. Okay.
But we didn't get a vote on the changes.
We
weren't
weren't
asked.
voting on the committee, though.
Well,
So-
yeah,
so
that's the whole
David,
point.
David,
We've had
I'm
no
gonna let
agency.
I'm gonna
in-
let some other people vote, but to be
But go
clear, we have established that we did not vote. That is
Yeah,
factual. You don't need to
that
continue
was
to say the
the
same
one
thing.
time, but now we're talking about
Can I move the
as-
question?
as the amendments took
Excuse me,
place.
David.
I move the question. Is that what you're supposed to say when you just want to
Yes.
get to the vote?
Okay, yes, you're testing my Robert's rules. All right.
I don't think everybody's spoken. Go ahead.
Move the question?
Do we need a second? Someone help me.
I think Julia seconded my
Okay.
motion.
No, do we need a
No,
second
no,
to
we need a
move the
second to
question?
motion.
Oh, to move the question?
Yes,
Second.
okay. Is there discussion on whether or not to vote? We're ready to vote? No discussion. Let's go on. So the question is to end discussion and vote. All right, so if you vote in the affirmative, you would end discussion and vote. All those in favor? That is 5 in favor. Those opposed? 1 opposed. So that's 5-1, and the motion passes, and we're ready to vote. Now we're voting on the main motion, which is the motion that Amy made. Does anyone need me to repeat the motion? Okay, everyone's clear? All right, all those in favor? That is 5. All those opposed? 1. That is 5-1, and the motion passes. Thank you all. Amy, did you have another motion?
I do. I just also want to say I believe in and I'm grateful for all the work that the school building committee has done on this project. I know it's a lot and I don't want to take away from that work. So this motion, I move that the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School Committee approves this, that the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School Committee recommends the school building committee ratify all of their previous actions since the school building committee's inception.
Do I have a second? Second by David Polito. So I'm going to try to restate. The motion is to recommend that this body, the school committee, recommends to the school building committee that they ratify all previous
Actions?
act-
Is that the right word?
actions. Yeah,
Work?
Votes.
votes and, okay. I think you said actions.
I said action.
Since inception.
Yes.
Yep, okay.
What does that mean exactly?
So all of the work that they've done up until this point, I believe that they should agree to ratify, you know, now that they're like a voted in body, that they should ratify the work that they've done up until now.
Does that mean put it in a public place? Does that mean,
I think it just means to, now that they're a voted upon body by us, to just sort of restate the work that they've done up till now.
It sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth,
Ratify
it
is
sounds
not the
like
right word.
it's more of a housekeeping issue, that because we didn't
Yeah.
take this initial vote, what we're saying is we recommend to them that they go ahead.
Oh, that they have the
And
vote.
the
that
minutes?
they-
Put
that
all the
They should just take a
minutes?
single vote saying everything that we've done, we're
Okay.
ratifying since the beginning. That like, that was, and again, that was my interpretation of the legal
Yes.
counsel. I assume it was.
Julia, to answer your question, the minutes, I believe, are already public.
right, so I didn't know if
On
there was
everything
extra
there,
work that they
um,
needed to do.
I would think this is just to sort of formalize.
Make it more
what we
official.
did.
Yep.
My
Well, it is official, but.
only thing is, you know, moving forward, you know, it tends to not, you know, we have our subcommittee, the purpose of subcommittees to go off and do the bulk of the work and not bringing back everything to,
Right. To be clear, though, they're not actually a subcommittee.
so,
They're not a subcommittee of the school committee.
I mean, if you want to say that, then I don't even know that we needed the vote.
Well, this is, well, no, I mean, but they're not. I mean, in other words, they're made up of other groups, other people. But I think Amy's motion really is a recommendation to them, like, we're making a recommendation to
Right,
them.
I mean, and I would just, lack of a better term, argue that as, you know, the custodians of the project, they actually are our subcommittee.
Okay.
Could I just comment on that? Like, I think that is a point that's not clear anywhere in public information.
What is the point that's not clear?
Like what the school building committee's relationship is, and I know that's kind of what we're working on right now, to this committee. And so I think that assuming that it's a subcommittee, the subcommittee makes recommendations to this committee, and then this committee sees them. This is a different relationship. So that clarity is just something that I haven't been able to see. For example, in the school building committee website, we're not listed in the milestones to project completion, which I think is something that is a easy fix to be able to do that. But to be frank, I still don't understand it.
Eric, do you want to tackle that?
I think the way the MSBA looks at it is that the school building committee, once they're created, they are the approving authority for the project, for bills, payments. So every meeting we get a bill from the architect or the OPM. We have to review it, approve it for payment, goes to Vinnie, then we have to bring it back, approve it for reimbursement through the state, and then any of those processes along the way are all contained within the school building committee. What I've learned along the way here is different towns and different cities have the opportunity for our school committees to weigh in or not, depending on bylaws and other agreements, which we don't, as our own attorney said, we are not very clear on. But whatever vote occurs, so the school building committee has made a vote. This committee may say, we want to go with a different option. If that happens, that needs to go back to the school building committee to be voted, to be submitted to the state. So the state is always looking to the school building committee for the actual votes and the interactions with the MSBA.
So then what is this committee's role?
We vote to approve. We have final vote.
Well, we can't, first, we have several roles. One, we took the initial votes earlier, much earlier on, before this, in order to move this process forward, to enter into the process. We voted to enter into the process. We voted to bring forward to the towns the warrant to get the money for the feasibility study. So we did that, and we would need to vote in order to bring the warrants to the towns to present for the next step. In other words, that's on us, not, correct? Someone back me up, then I'm.
No, you're right.
Yeah,
You're correct.
Yep.
It's a kind of a tandem tier. So
Right,
the school
exactly.
committee is here, the building committee's here, and the building committee is working on with appropriated money. So we already appropriated $1.25 million for the feasibility process. So we've said, okay, we have that. And the school building committee now is managing that 1.25, because nothing's come back here for approval. They've been approved, we sign it off, it goes to the state for approval for reimbursement through Vinnie, and then we get reimbursed. So we go through that process over and over. The next stage, however we decide we're moving forward, say we pick one option, we go to the communities and say, this is the option, and it's $50 million. The community says, yes, go. That now goes to the school building committee to manage. So when we enter into this agreement to work with the state, we're basically saying this school building committee has the authority to manage the monies. The school committee is required to really set the warrant article, and believe it or not, it comes straight from the MSBA. Like, you go back to when the $1 million was voted in, that is the article that came straight out of the MSBA. It's just like the school building committee. The template we're working with is what they emailed me and said, here's the template you're emailing. So a lot of it is checking the boxes with the MSBA, but the MSBA is looking towards the school building committee as the authority to move with allocated funds. The school building committee cannot go to the community and say, we need more money. They have to come back here and say that. But
So then that's the role, is we appropriate funds for the school building committee.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Excellent.
Yeah, so they can't really move forward, even if they voted and said, yeah, we're gonna move forward, and the state said, move forward, they still need a funding source, so that would come back to here and say, okay, does the committee agree to go forward and ask for a warrant article covering X, or multiple warrant, whatever it may be. So
Yeah.
we had to do that 2 years ago when we started this process.
For the feasibility.
For the feasibility, yeah. So each segment will bring a new opportunity to come
Right.
back around.
So, right. And the school building committee is a mechanism that is a required mechanism that
Right.
is required by the MSBA process. In fact, you could see in all those memos that Eric showed us, the previous, when we built the middle school in town, the lists of the school building committee when that, in other words, the process was similar, at least at that time. David, did you have something? You look like you want to say something.
No, I'm just sort of saying, like, there's a little bit of confusion here is why I am a little hesitant on the motion, right? In sort of, like, blessing these the previous work by the school building committee, we could be setting a precedent that now everything moving forward needs our blessing moving forward. So I'm just, I think this is something that we should have discussed when we go back into the regional agreement, is clearing up little things like this.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It's a topic for another discussion.
That is a topic for another discussion.
But yeah, so that's my only concern, right? Is I just don't want to. I want to make sure that we're moving forward, like we're doing the right things and saying, okay, well, we checked our box here to properly authorize the committee as a district, as our district school committee is set to run, without sort of like interfering in the process of the school building committee.
So, to be clear, I think that both things could occur. In other words, the remedy recommended was that the school building committee take a vote just to ratify all previous, I don't think it said ratify, but I think maybe you said ratify, I don't know. But
I just like that word.
whatever, we'll use ratify all previous actions. That doesn't mean that has to come from us. The school building committee could make that choice on their own. Is that sort of what you're saying?
I'm
That's-
just confused about the
I
word
just want to make sure
ratify.
that our wording is correct, which is funny because I'm sitting here trying to write what the actual
Motion.
amendment was.
My
Do you have it in front
interpretation
of
of the lawyer's letter is that now that the school building committee is legitimized, then it's up to them to do what was recommended.
That is what I was meaning, so,
So, yeah.
go ahead.
I'll just say, this was, council said, I believe, may, the school building committee may choose to ratify all their previous votes. So, your point is, in other words, your motion was to recommend to them, that would be us making a recommendation, and I'm hearing your concern is that maybe that we want to allow them independence to, is that correct?
Yeah, I want them to just be able to operate the way.
Yep.
That, I'm trying not to get in the way
Yep.
of the process.
I hear you.
Yeah, and that wasn't my intent through the motion either. I just was seeing it as the next step of, this committee has now voted to approve that committee, so should they go back and just put a stamp on the work they've done so far? But yeah, I don't intend on wanting to vote on everything they're doing every step
Certainly
of the
not,
way.
no, certainly not. So I think, I guess I want to hear David's voice in particular, both because you are the representative to the school building committee. Right, so it's important to hear what you have to say about.
Yeah, it's a pretty, straightforward process over there. I think, we, as a, board, the school committee tends to be the more complex animal.
Great.
Yeah, and again, it's really just the wording of the motion so that we're not setting ourselves up to sort of say, okay, well, everything that the school building committee does needs to be voted for us.
So,
The motion, right, which means I just heard it wrong, that's
Yeah.
what I want to clarify, is to recommend to the school building committee to ratify, okay.
their own previous actions, their own, right. not for us to tell them what to do in terms of what actions to take. And in fact, it's a recommendation, so if they chose not to do that, that would be their choice. We're not
Okay.
instructing them. All right, is there any other question? Any other discussion?
Just one second, I just wanted to read
Sure.
the,
And we could recommend this to any board we want.
Yep, no, and in fact, well, and
We
in.
could just
and in-
recommend
right, no, but it-
everyone ratify
but it-
everything.
No, but in fact, we do and we have at times.
Right, right.
Made recommendations, written letters of what we'd like to do. I mean,
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
something we, correct.
Right,
That's-
it's not
that's
a mandate, it's recommendation.
Correct. No, that's excellent, an excellent point, actually. Yeah.
okay, I found it. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have something?
Oh, I did have one other question.
Sure.
Is there a policy around, I look at this and say, we had a miss in our procedure. Is there any policy that exists around engaging with, because there's no clear place where one could find this information, right? It was all
Right,
in the mind
quite
of the
complicated.
general counsel. Is there any policy on projects that should be brought before general counsel before they're submitted to state agencies or something? Or is that a area for process improvement that we might consider building in?
Again,
it's case
I
by
would
case.
think just that would fall under the regional agreement with, capital project, like under that capital project language that we already know needs to go in and get fixed and is on the agenda.
Yeah.
Because, the process and the way it's written is severely outdated. And again, I think that's sort of how we ended up here.
Yes.
Because, and I think that's the place to do it. Does it make sense to be in-house? Maybe it's up for the policy committee to look at too. But I think, when you're talking about like these larger projects, that probably does fall more under the purview of regional agreement.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds, from my point of view, that sounds logical, and since we're not into the regional agreement process yet, it's hard to say how that will, but it seems reasonable. I mean, a project like this is, complicated, and we looked to the guidelines that we had, which was to look to the state, which seemed logical.
Right, well, so, I
Yeah,
mean,
so-
we're here having this discussion, not because of our internal
Right.
policies as a district, I'm sorry, as a school district, where it's this, requirement that we sort of missed in the language from the regional agreement.
Right,
So-
and to be clear, even that, I mean, that we were deep in the footnotes and the weeds of that, and I take some responsibility. I certainly,
I mean, it's
I did not know, and I could not have known, but I certainly have
It's
made public
it-
that I've read the regional agreement many
it's
times.
happening at an opportune time as,
Yep.
we are about to, go and look at a lot of this wording anyway. So obviously, okay, hey, because hopefully, this is the first of, a couple projects that'll be happening in the future, how near or far is, but to just clarify, have those steps clarified while we're already doing the work.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
Sorry. The architects that we're working with, JCJ, has told me in other projects, there's been like a regional agreement that's very specific. Like you'd go in and say, the school committee can appoint a school building committee, and it should minimally include boom, 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 these different things, which is, if you read the law, it's the same type of thing where they say, here's some suggestions of people that should be on the committee, which is where the template comes from the state. So
And-
we have the ability to do it.
Yeah, and those, I mean, the regional agreement meetings are getting scheduled right now. And also, it's, really possible that the rules around creating building committees were quite different 65 years ago when they wrote our regional agreement. So,
Can I say one thing? I don't think this was a miss. I think that this body did absolutely everything that we could with the information that we were provided with and that we had. So I would not characterize this as a miss at all, just to be clear.
All right, it feels like we're getting close to being ready. Does anybody have anything else they want to? Nope. Okay, everybody clear on what we're voting on?
No, can you repeat
The
the motion?
recommendation to
Sure.
ratify.
I believe the motion is that the school committee will recommend to the school building committee that they ratify all previous actions since inception. Okay? Everybody ready? All right, all those in favor? And that is unanimous of the 6 members present, and the motion passes. Okay. You good?
I actually have one more motion. I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee requires any future changes to the constitution of the school building committee to be voted on for approval by this committee.
Second.
Second by David Polito. Okay, so that would be, all right, so that the motion is for all future changes to the membership of the school building committee would be brought to this committee to vote and approve on the membership,
Approve
is that
the
correct?
person?
Would that be membership and voting power?
I guess I would fall under discussion, like when we first talked about the school building committee, but it would just be on, that current formation of.
Changes, so
yeah.
like all the, you're
All
talking about
changes,
all the
so-
memos, like when Eric is
Membership
notifying
and
the
voting
MSBA
status.
that we're.
So if someone leaves,
Just to be clear.
we have to vote in the next person that comes in.
So, yeah.
Yes.
And that right now, Eric, I believe, is a requirement that you're sending those memos, when there's a change, you have to send it to the MSBA
Within 20 days.
anyway.
We have to do it within 20 days of any change to the committee.
The committee,
No,
school committee has to
I
do it?
submit it.
Oh, right.
So
So you just
anytime
have
there's
to
a
tell us.
change, I have that same form. You've seen this, I think, 4 or 5 iterations here. Anytime it changes, I have to send it to our MSBA contact. She has to clear it through their legal department and then approves it. So they ultimately approve the school building committee.
But as of right now, there's no requirement that we vote on each member.
No.
It's just the motion
Right.
in
Well, we've
question.
already approved the current constitution, so,
Right.
so right now, the members that are there, we voted that just a minute ago.
Yeah,
Right.
but there's no, if
But
if
this
we were to get,
motion-
if Jen Caulfield were to
Yep.
want to join the committee, I'd have to bring that forward to the committee to approve or not.
Okay.
And I think
I get
Dave
it.
brought up a good point, included in that process is the voting rights. Does this person have voting rights or not? So I think as we go down this road, we need more clarity on what that process looks like, because you can't just bring anybody forward. The state is very specific, like they're looking for people with skills or people in specific positions. So I think if we want to go down this road, we just want to be very clear about what are the kind of the requirements of the individual who wants to be part of that committee. And there are a lot of talented people in town, so we don't have a shortage of that. It's just more of, what do you want to have as kind of a minimum bar when I'm bringing someone forward to the committee. So I bring a person here, here's Johnny Jones is here, we want to add them to committee. What happens then?
So I guess my impression would be that the way when I looked at the exhibits and I've seen those, the way it would be is that when you submit that change to the MSBA, that would be the same document that we would get ahead of, and you would just say, this person departed, and this is the new person, this is the change, just basically a red line, and have us acknowledge that change. You look like you want to, Trent has something, and I think David has something.
My only concern with that is the 20-day notice. Is there going to be a feasible, is it possible that we're going to end up in a situation where there's a change?
Where we might have to have a meeting in July, yes.
And so because of that, I might recommend an amendment to the motion that the school building committee is.
For 1
Sure,
second,
sure.
Just because my notes, maybe we can all wrap it up. I just
Yeah.
have 2 things I want to say. And then, because my 2 thoughts are, one, the way it's currently stated, right? If someone left the board for whatever reason, right? under the way the motion was just, presented, then it would sort of come to us. Now, again, just the way it was sort of worded means that we'd have to approve that they're leaving, like, so at that point, like, no, you can't
We can't
go.
force them to stay.
Right.
I don't-
Would
I'm not
then be
interested in
a
that.
viable option that this board could vote on. So just wanted to make that note. And then the other thing, is this idea, again, where now we might be too vague, is that, when we do hire a new, head of operations in here, who has a very significant role, on that board, obviously, that whole hiring process would be reported out here anyway. And then, what I'm thinking is, because that's something that, will be brought to the board at some point. I think go right on that, right? So it's a very concrete example, so are we saying, okay, well, here, so-and-so is coming in, they're going to be the new, head of facilities and maintenance, or, they will be a voting member of, I'm recommending that they be a voting member of the school building committee, as recommended by the MSBA. Right? Do we do that before we then send that to the MSBA, or do we do it after the MSBA has approved them? Right? Because there is that.
So, and I know that time got cut off, so I do want to.
No, but I wanted to include that because
No,
I
and
actually
I want to jump in and add one more thing, is that when I read
Because we're gonna make the
when I
amendment,
read
do
the
it right.
legal, opinion, I wanted to make sure that I understood it so that I could run this meeting. And one of the things I asked is actually do we need to have something that says going forward, we're not going to have this happen again? Do we need to take a vote to say, like, going forward, that we want, to not have this happen again? And the advice I was given was that is fine to do, but not necessary. So I don't know if that helps, or, right, at the time, to be honest, I was like, seems like the more votes, the better at this point.
Well, that's sort of why I
don't
made
know,
the motion.
I totally disagree.
So I'm putting out there, I do want, and I really do feel bad that
I don't want to
cut
be
Trent
voting
off,
on
so I
every
want
single
Trent to
person on
be-
every
Trent
single committee for
to
every
speak,
single
and then you can speak, and then we might need to kind of come to some, because we don't have all night. So go ahead, Trent.
I was just going to recommend a amendment to the motion that this school committee is informed when a change is made at our next
You mean informed
meeting.
publicly? Like
Informed.
informed at a public meeting?
I'm sorry?
Do you mean informed not on email, but on public meeting?
Oh, I'm fine with email. That's great. Yeah, just
So
informed.
Your
Yeah.
amendment would be, I just want to I'm just clarifying, we haven't even heard a second, I just want to make sure I heard what you said. That your amendment would be to, it would be that instead of voting to approve, we would be informed of any changes.
Yes.
Adjacent to that.
Oh, hold on, we need to know whether or not there's a
Oh,
second.
sorry.
Well,
That's to that amendment.
I second that in light of what that recommendation was from our attorney.
Okay, so,
There is a second.
so I heard a second.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so now,
came from
oh,
person who
it
made the
came from
motion.
you.
Right,
so it's a friendly
and
amendment.
that's why I wanted
Okay.
to confirm
sorry,
that the
sorry.
information that you got was from our attorney,
Correct.
that we don't have to vote on new members and members
The,
leaving.
the-
Okay.
the advice they got was that there was no harm in voting going
Right.
forward, but it was also not required.
Okay.
So-
Question.
So and then you're next, I just
Oh,
want to
I'm
make
sorry.
sure, because right now we have the friendly amendment. Okay, so we have a friendly accepted amendment, and so the motion is that moving forward, any changes to, the school committee would be informed of any changes to the composition of the school building committee.
Yes.
Your understanding, is that
Correct.
correct? Is that
That's
correct?
my understanding.
Okay. All right,
In
David.
relation to that, when we originally didn't vote on creating the committee, nevertheless, there were 2 school committee members on the committee. And I'm wondering why, or whether we can go back to that original intent.
School building committee?
so I'm just,
Yeah, Jen was on it.
To-
yeah, Jen Carr was on.
listed as, along with you.
On the school building committee?
Yes, you were.
Yep.
Both of you.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
Long time ago.
so originally,
accurate.
two committee members were assigned to the committee in case one of them couldn't be there, so.
Oh, I see.
That's what Jen and Dave were kind of
thought it
paired
was
up,
mine.
because if
Sorry.
Dave couldn't be there, then Jen could be there. That's why there were two, just so somebody from the committee could be there.
Yeah. So, I'm just gonna say that, like, that's a valid question. I'm glad you asked it. But
it's
it doesn't fit under this
no, it's-
motion, right?
tangential to the motion, so
Okay.
go ahead.
All right. Is there anything else on this motion?
I just want to apologize to Bev.
I
for
know.
What she's doing. in minutes.
You want to apologize to Bev? Just to be clear, that's who you're apologizing to?
Oh, she's the one who has to sort all
Sort
this
all this out, right.
what the minutes are gonna look like.
Okay. I'll tell you somebody else whose brain is spinning right now, but thank you.
That's what you said.
Okay. All right. So, everybody's clear on what the motion is? We all clear?
Oh, I'm sorry, one more
No,
point of
that's fine.
discussion.
No, that's why, that's the reason I ask. So the current motion is that moving forward, the school committee will be informed of, by the superintendent presumably, but will be informed of any changes to the composition of the school building committee.
Does this committee, in light of what we learned about the relationship to the school building committee, have standing to charge the school building committee? Or do we have to charge the superintendent or the representative?
I think I guess I don't want to speak for the group. My understanding was we would be charging the superintendent with providing us with that information, but I don't know if other people had a different understanding of that.
That was my understanding, where it looks like, Eric, you email the MSBA with the new formation. You
Right.
could just add us to the list. Would that work as a method of informing the committee?
So do we just need to change the school building committee in the motion to superintendent?
I did not interpret the motion as meaning that we were tasking the school building committee with doing anything, so. But I want to make sure that we all have a good understanding. I mean, my understanding was that what we're saying is that the school committee will be informed of any changes in the composition of the school building committee, but that doesn't task them with informing us, because Eric is the person who's in contact with the MSBA already to inform them of that, so, does that make sense?
No. Perfect.
All right, are we ready to vote? Okay. All those in favor? All right, and that is unanimous of the 6 members present, and the motion passes. Yeah, and definitely good luck to Bev, because I don't know that I have all that.
I'm out of paper. That's why I just stopped trying.
Okay.
Bev gets it.
Okay. Next, we're going to have a brief discussion about the district goals for 2024, 2025. Eric?
Thank you, and I apologize, I cannot get the Apple TV to work, and it's not just here, it seems our tech people are trying to get on their Apple TVs at home, getting the same error messages.
Oh, I was going to say, can somebody else try to get on?
It's not just us, so, going back and forth with our tech people right now. The district goals discussion starts now for next year, because we really set a good process in place last year where we kind of opened up discussion here with the committee. We moved it forward to the leadership team to build the draft. We brought that back to the committee for further discussion. And then in our 2 summer meetings, the leadership team retreat and the school committee retreat, we honed down the actual goals that we voted on for this current school year. So we want to do the same thing with that process this year. And what I'm asking committee members to do is start to think about some of the things that we can use as goals for next year, for the next school year, the year itself, not beyond. We have a couple already that carry over. The MTSS goal will carry over again for its, I think it's 4th year now. No, excuse me, 3rd year. So that will be one of our goals anyway. We've kind of said that all along. It'll be a multi-year goal. But other things that you think we should be setting as the kind of big picture overarching goals, so that we can have our principals connect their school improvement plans to those bigger goals. So kind of thinking big picture, just like the goals we have now. You know, they're right behind us, long-range planning and communications plan, just things that, quote, we needed. So I'm just asking the committee to start to think about that and email me individually kind of ideas so that I can take all those ideas and bring them to the leadership team. My first leadership team with this topic of discussion on it is next Tuesday, and then 2 weeks from there is the next one, so that we can continue to bring that information kind of back and forth between the leadership team and the school committee and hone in, hopefully by the end of the school committee summer retreat on August 9th, to be able to have a set of goals to vote for the beginning of the school year.
When do you need ideas by to bring to leadership?
If people know things now, send them now. If you know, in a week you think about it, and I still have every 2 weeks I meet with the leadership team meeting, so this is an ongoing discussion from now through the beginning of the next school year. It's kind of always going to sit on our agenda as a discussion item, so.
Okay.
Just things to think about, and bigger, like overarching stuff, like the curriculum work that we're doing with MTSS has really driven us now to working with math across the district this year. So there are some big kind of goals in place, and that allows the principals in their building, school, I can't remember,
Improvement plan?
the school improvement plan, thank you. The school improvement plans to be directly connected so that they can create their goals. The majority of their goals connect to us, and then they'll have their own sub-goals that go along with it. So it'll be an opportunity for us to look towards next year and what we can complete.
Thank you. Yeah, so get thinking, and
If anybody wants to have a discussion, feel free. We can call, we can grab a cup of coffee, whatever. Just kind of go through some of those bigger picture items. And there are things like the strategic plan we finished, working on the portrait of the graduate. Those are all big picture items. The communications plan. So kind of looking at really high level stuff that the rest of the district can connect to drive our work into the future.
all right, thank you. Anybody have anything for Eric on that? Okay. Next up, this is, unfortunately, we can't throw it up there, but I encourage you all to look at on your agenda, the potential timeline for the superintendent. This is hopefully pretty straightforward. Please look at your calendars, but this is me making a suggestion and asking for feedback, and if this seems like it makes sense, we can vote on the timeline. But basically, you received the summative evidence from the superintendent a week ago, so you've had that for a week. I'm just looking at in the past, how long we've taken. I plan on sending you tomorrow the information that you normally get every year, which is the same information that you get, but I know, Trent, you haven't gotten the opportunity to see it before, but it's basically, the rubric and the form that you fill out for the superintendent and all of the guidelines on how to do the superintendent evaluation. So you'll have that. So you'll have everything that you need. I'm just proposing on that timeline that and again, this is a suggestion. People can say that they don't like the timeline. This was just me throwing something out there. So the 23rd, which is 3 weeks from now, I'm saying would hypothetically be a deadline to submit individual evaluations. Then one member needs to combine them and create a composite document. We've typically done that in a couple of weeks. That would put us at the 6th, June 6th. In the past, we've often taken that vote on the same evening that it's presented. I'm proposing here that while that could possibly happen, we do have a meeting after that, so it would allow, I think, a little bit more of a flexible process, that if someone felt like they wanted to make, that the group felt that they wanted to have changes or adjustments or edits, that would allow that feedback to the compiler, who could then make those revisions, and then, if needed, and then we could vote on the 20th. This is just a suggested timeline. Thoughts? Discussion?
That's good.
This works?
Okay.
So the composite would just be presented to committee members? It's not like a public thing?
No,
until
it's in public.
Until the 20th,
public.
until we vote on it? It's public.
No, we would have a
Opposite.
discussion on the
We're gonna have
6th.
discussion on the 6th.
It would
Okay.
be, we've done it in the past where the exhibit is watermarked with the draft across it.
Okay, yeah.
We would have a discussion, but in the past, we've been pushed right up against the end of the year,
Yes.
and so I think there's felt pressure to have a vote at
Yeah.
that
No, I get
meeting.
it.
So this would allow, if needed, if everyone loves the composite and it's perfect, great, we could vote, you know, but
Move to vote.
this is just a suggestion, again. Timeline questions? No? Okay.
Fine by me.
I would entertain a motion on this if anyone has one.
That would be me. I moved at the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee, geez, all right, let's start again. I recommend that I move the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee vote to approve the superintendent evaluation timeline as presented.
Second.
Second by Julia. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And that is unanimous of the 6 members present, and the motion passes. Thank you. Just while I'm thinking of it, I will be in touch with you, Trent, about being a new member and having not done it before. I will be in touch to get you some more detailed information on how to actually do the evaluation. Okay. All right. Next up. Our next item is the MSBA timeline and public polling. So I'm not sure exactly whether we want to go, I think we need, this agenda item really requires some information both from the ad hoc committee that we created and also from Eric. So I don't know, Eric looks like he's doing some tech support, so maybe we'll start with the ad hoc committee, which was David, and Trent. Do you guys have some information?
Yeah, we met on Wednesday and elected myself as chair. And I don't remember David as secretary.
Okay.
And our next meeting is scheduled for 4 p.m. This coming Wednesday, where we were hoping to get information on the timeline
Okay, I think we're going to.
to be able to inform the discussion that's going to happen at that meeting.
Okay.
And the methodology.
He's,
Can we ask questions?
yes, we're just having, he's just trying to get, you're trying to get something so we can put something up on the screen.
Is there like a polling company you guys are talking to? What's going on with that?
So I identified one polling company that has said that they're willing to give a demo. I know that David also has identified a contact that has experience in this area. We just don't know the timeframe parameters.
Okay.
And so I think that will be the first piece of information that'll allow us to get a sense of what timeframe we'll be able to collect this information.
Do we know a sense of cost?
Yeah, well,
I'm just asking questions.
yep, go ahead.
We've
I
only
think
had-
if we want to be transparent with the public, we need to
Yeah, no,
know
definitely.
as much as possible.
Based on very limited information, the ballpark was something in the order of 17 to 20 grand.
17 to 20 grand.
That's a lot.
Okay.
But that's, you know,
I think one of those
Take
is,
that to the bank.
David, I think one of those is for Julia.
oh, I'm sorry.
Take one, pass it down.
Yep.
There we go.
We haven't signed anything though. We're just looking at
at all.
places.
We're just investigating.
Just investigating.
What's the process going to be to bring this to the committee? Because we have to allocate the funds.
I think that because this is a subcommittee formed by this committee, we would just be bringing a recommendation to the full committee.
Recommendation. Okay.
Eric, are you ready to talk about the timeline, or are you
Yes.
hoping to put it up on the screen and it's
I
not
was hoping,
working?
but it's not going to.
Yeah.
So, that's okay.
Do all the members of the committee have
This-
this that he passed
Should-
out?
I passed it out, yep.
Okay.
This did not become an exhibit because I just got it this morning and kind of pieced this together this afternoon. We met with the architects. We have requested an extension on the deadline. As you know, today was the deadline to submit the PSR to the MSBA. We've requested a delay until tomorrow morning, until we knew exactly what was going to happen tonight. So we just said the committee wants to review, possibly poll deeper in the community. We need more time. We have to submit a letter to the state requesting time, depending on what we decide tonight. And that has to be in tomorrow. So I can take care of that piece. But this chart here, the top boxes is the original timeline up through the schematic process, which is where we're doing feasibility, which includes the schematic design process. The next one down, where it says revised PSR submittal, we would have to be able to get our preferred option approved at the June 6th school committee meeting, so that we could get it to the MSBA. The date, I thought it might be in July, but then I realized early July is, you know, the 4th of July. So the date for MSBA submission would be the 27th of June. For review in August, for approval in August. So June 27th, we'd be invited to what they call FAS. That would be up to them to decide. I forget the dates. There's a calendar that's posted. There are 2 dates in July. You get assigned to one of them, and then the board approval would occur in August. That gives the architects 6 months instead of 8 months to do the schematic design process to be able to hit the mark for ATM. So this is outlining what it would take to hit the town meeting for April 2025. If we go beyond the April 25 town meeting, so say they need an extra month or so to do schematic design, it could push to a month or 2 delay, which we'd have to request a special town meeting. These delays are listed on the bottom, and I just used the two kind of that have been talked about a lot. C3.1, 2-month delay would be $332,526 approximately. This is from both estimators. A 4-month delay would be $665,053 approximately. And the 3.4 option would be 2-month delay, $475,655, and a 4-month delay, $951,311. That's if we had to go beyond the April 2025 ATM. So I don't want anybody to think like this is an automatic number we're going to eat right away.
So-
This is just if we have to go beyond, so we can't hit that mark.
So just for clarification, I'm sorry, but if we were to vote on June 6th and move this forward, these project costs would not come into place.
Correct,
We would
unless we ran into an
anticipate that
issue
we
with
would-
schematic
I mean,
design.
I understand anything
Yeah,
could happen,
yeah.
but that would not cause us to be behind.
Right.
Okay.
And I had a discussion with the architects and OPM and back and forth with MSBA to try to figure out like what makes sense. If we go beyond this timeline, then these escalations will kick in. If we don't submit and get approved for schematic design on the August 28th date, then you're going to go 2 more months because it's every 2 months. It's that every 2-month cycle. So then you're going to start adding to the overall cost, and these numbers will change along the way depending on how far out it goes.
Okay.
Our next school committee meeting's the 16th.
16th, yep.
Yep. So, I guess, I have thoughts, but I think other people probably do too.
Then June
Julia,
Go,
you
you can go.
look like you're having something to say.
No, it's okay. You can go. You can go.
No, go.
I just have concerns about the cost. I think $20,000 is an insane amount to pay for a poll where we're going to maybe get 5% of the population to actually respond. I also am concerned about the project cost increases if we hold this project off, I mean, that's not to say that we're necessarily going to vote it in, but if we delay the vote, I'm just concerned about the cost increase. And I think we need to be incredibly transparent with the public who's telling us we're not transparent about the costs involved.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'll say for right now.
I agree. I know that you are waiting for more information from the polling company, but did they give any sort of timeline, schedule?
I can clarify a little bit, right? So we had a meeting scheduled yesterday, and obviously we made the agenda. So the three of us all reached out independently to try and find some polling companies. I was not able to find any, but they were both able to find someone. David had some good resources about, just sort of with this individual timeline that just, I'm sorry, did not give us a timeline, gave us a brief cost estimate, and then did not give us, gave David a, cost estimate, and was willing to speak to us and sort of about the process, wanted to speak to us last night, but since it wasn't on the agenda, I said we should put it off, right, just to, again, make sure we didn't have any sort of OML violations, excuse me. So that's why we didn't sort of have him on to have more concrete evidence tonight, right? And, so that being said, we are working on the fact that, like, David had a conversation, which, again, was what I was reaching out to try and do to, a couple of sources I had that, again, had no one for this, and, I did not ask Trent, but I imagine the same sort of thing to get this sort of general ballpark to even begin to have this discussion. So that's kind of where we were last night. We did a decent job of mapping out sort of what we think, this poll would entail, and what we're trying to, we felt we're trying to get out, we would try to get out of it, so that when we did sort of meet with whomever, no matter what, we could sort of be picking their brains and hitting this ground running as we're going to go.
Yep.
I think that summarizes kind of where we were last night, if that helps at all.
And
Yep,
I wouldn't
that's-
judge what the potential validity of it before you've heard the proposal. This is the one person I reached out to, I know, is a professor of political science that is a professional pollster. He was Dick Gephardt's pollster for many years. He's published extensively on politics. And he's very mindful of statistically significant outcomes with error rates, defined and so forth based on the sampling method, et cetera. So
I didn't question the validity. I'm questioning the cost. That's all.
well, yeah.
Because
you'll
the
get to vote on
public
that.
literally will question every dollar we spend.
Yeah.
That they do.
Well, we're going to spend, $140 million, but we may get turned down at the end if we don't do a good job of predicting the likelihood that it'll pass. I think that's, as I understood it, the intent of doing it, because you can get all the way down the line and then have a public vote, and if the public vote says no way, we've squandered a lot of money and a lot of time.
I'm concerned about the timeline also. Can it be instituted so that we get the results in time to vote June 6th, do you think?
Will be much more meaningful after the discussion with one or two vendors next week.
Okay.
Because of open meeting law, it wasn't on the agenda for the first
Right,
meeting.
right.
So give us another meeting.
No, I think we got a clear picture of what occurred, and Julia's expressing
No
some
commitment
concerns.
will be made without reference back to this committee anyhow, so.
But we have one more meeting before June 6th, right?
We have two.
Oh, we have two more meetings
May
before June
We have the
6th.
we have the
They have one.
16th. We have one
16th
meeting,
In June 4th.
June 6th.
June
June
6th.
4th.
Oh, you have you're saying, no, she's asking what school committee meetings do we have before?
I think ours is
Oh,
June
it's
6th.
So we-
written
On
the
June
4th.
6th.
Yeah, I did notice that
What's that?
earlier today. On our list of meetings, it's
Yes.
June 6th, which is correct, and for whatever reason, on the drop-down
okay.
menu where the
Oh, No, that would be a
No,
Tuesday. That
I
would
mean,
be a
that's what I was
Tuesday.
asking.
Tuesday,
That's a
yeah.
Tuesday. No, it's June 6th. Okay,
Alright.
so, okay, Amy, did you have something?
I second the concern about the timeline. I feel like what we know about response rate for surveys in town, hiring a company, writing a survey, approving the survey, getting it out to the public, getting responses in time to make a decision. I'm really concerned about the amount of time that we have. And I'm also concerned about if we don't meet this timeline, what it means for the cost increase. I'm wondering if there's either a fast way to do it with a company or a way to do it in-house that feels neutral, not biased.
So I'm going to take my turn to speak as a member, and I have some really significant concerns. One is I don't know, I know we created the subcommittee, but to be honest, it feels uncomfortable to me that we're just having members of the subcommittee reach out to people that they might know. I'm not saying that, like, that feels uncomfortable. I don't know exactly what the process, but I have real concerns about this timeline. I do not, under any circumstances, want these cost increases. I'm not talking about the cost of the poll. I'm talking about the cost of the project.
Right.
That again, I'm only speaking as myself right now. I am very concerned. To me, the work of the school building committee has been working for a very long time to bring forth this recommendation, and for us to delay this vote to the point where we incur extra costs, these significant extra costs, that gives me a lot of pause. I don't know which one of you said it. One of you said, I don't remember Julia or David, but one of you said that ultimately we're going to bring this to the people and it could get voted down. And that's certainly true, that could happen. And like, that's the ultimate poll, right? It's really difficult. I don't know. I really am. I'm very concerned about the ability of this ad hoc committee to produce something that really feels meaningful and useful in the timeline that we have. I'm concerned. So
Of anybody,
I will.
not just the committee, but of anybody. I think that's a really tough deadline for anybody.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, no. No. That was certainly
Yeah.
not a comment that I
mean,
don't think the three of you can do. No, certainly, thank you.
Let me
David.
say, one way around that is to take the risk of running those two things in parallel. You keep going on your schedule, on this schedule, and we get the fastest possible poll. If that poll doesn't portend a serious opposition, we're fine. If it does, it may have an impact on how you approach the ongoing project. I mean, it's just supposed to be, as I understand it, indicative of where the community is. And I don't think anybody really can know at this point.
Dana, can I make a motion?
Yes, always. Yes, go ahead, make a motion.
I feel confident making this motion now with the information that I have, but I move that we do not contract with the polling company, that we strike the vote from last week, and that we move forward with the timeline as originally proposed. That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, I heard a motion, and it was seconded. I need some clarification.
Mm-hmm.
So, is your motion to rescind the vote from last time, or are you making just a new,
And I would rather make a new motion, but I don't know.
okay.
I would
Okay.
rather go with the original timeline as proposed, although I know that tonight we were supposed to vote. So it wouldn't be the original timeline as proposed.
Okay, so, right, the original timeline would have us voting
Tonight,
tonight.
right. So it's not the original timeline, but maybe an amendment to, I want to make a motion to continue the project as recommended by with the timeline, not necessarily project, with the timeline recommended by the MSBA as originally recommended. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm just trying to make sure I know what the motion, to make sure the motion is very clear.
I know, and I should have talked to you about it beforehand. But I didn't
No,
have
we
this
didn't- we
information, and I
no,
didn't know.
No, this is, so I heard a motion to, help me out, to stay with the original
So
time.
the motion was to strike last week's.
Right, that's what I was trying to ask.
Motion to reconsider, that's all.
A
Okay,
motion
so-
to reconsider.
That's not what was stated.
Right, the motion was to strike. Okay, so,
I would say a motion to reconsider.
okay, so,
I don't want to strike.
would you like, okay, so here's a possibility. Would you like to withdraw your motion?
Yes.
Okay. All right,
So
Help me write a better one.
she can do that,
She can do that.
yes.
All right.
So I can give you some information, Robert's Rules information. So a motion to reconsider actually needs to take place in the same meeting.
Oh, okay.
And as stated by a member of the public, it is accurate that you would need to be on the sort of winning side in order to, which it was a unanimous vote, so all of us were on the same side. But that would be within the same meeting. A motion to rescind is something that takes place after the meeting has occurred. A motion to rescind a vote would mean that your vote would be to just undo the vote, to say, undo the vote. A motion to rescind, if it is publicly posted or announced ahead of time, is just a regular motion and will be a 50%, majority. If it is not publicly posted or announced ahead of time, as in this case, it would require a 2/3 majority of the members who are voting, or a majority of the entire body, which in our case is the same number, which is 4, right? Because somebody check my math on that, but 4 out of 6, 4 is 2/3, and 4 is also the number that, right?
Yes, you're right.
One more? All right. A motion to amend is separate, a motion to amend would be to look at a previous vote and say, I would like to amend that vote in some way. It has the same voting rules that I just described, and I'm not going to try to do again. 'Cause, so, I'm sorry to keep putting you on the spot. I don't know exactly what you want to do.
I move to rescind the vote from
Okay.
last week, and it can go which way it goes.
Second.
Okay, so the motion was seconded by Amy Klimberger. The motion is to rescind the vote on
Creating the survey
creating
and
creating
contracting with a polling company.
the ad hoc committee to create a poll. Is everyone is everyone clear on what Julia's motion is?
Yes.
I just want to
Right.
make sure, because before we open.
I want to make sure that everybody's clear what Julia's motion does.
Yep.
Right? So Julia's motion now takes away the ad hoc committee and puts us back on the original timeline, at which point this board tonight now would vote towards whether or not we approve the recommended.
I think that that is, I think that that is accurate.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure
Yes.
that's accurate.
Yes.
Right? And I'm not gonna lie, that
Why?
makes me really uncomfortable.
Same.
Not that I don't know what I believe in, where, but I feel that personally, this is going to fall heavily on my shoulders, right? I just spent the past week getting extorted, yelled at, right? And just every name in the book thrown at me, right? It just ended. It has consumed my life for the past week. And I've done everything in my power to try and be as open and honest in this process and hear all sides and show in good faith that I'm willing to do whatever the community and this community asks me to do for the benefit of this district and the kids in this district, right? And the cluster that this is sort of turning into is an embarrassment. And again, I feel like it's really falling on my shoulders, right? Because I'm telling you right now, I'm the deciding vote, right? And again, I know exactly where I'm coming from if I was to put that vote forward. However, everything that just ended for me, right? This week of hell I've just had, I've reached out a few times in 8+ years on this board. Through COVID, I didn't get the vitriol spit my way that I did this past week, right? For volunteering to sit on multiple committees in this town to benefit the kids of this community, right? So now to actually have this here, right, really upsets me, right?
It's not my intent at all to vote tonight.
I'm not saying it was anybody's intent, right? But I have to be honest and say that I am not happy about the way this has gone about. I've been trying to, do my duty and listen to everybody's, sort of opinion in town, do my duty in reporting out all of the information I have, because I am privy to more information to everybody as being the representative of this subcommittee, right? And having been doing this work for 2 years, right? We spent a great deal of time yesterday just giving backstory and how we actually came, right? Which is really important. And if we were to go forward and everybody agreed that if we were to go forward, a full and complete understanding of our community is really what we're trying to get out of this poll, right? And that's why I agreed to it last week, right? And that's why I agreed to join that subcommittee, right? And why I've filled up my week, taken away from my family of everything that's been going on this week, right? Which is a very, very busy week at home. And, and now here I am, right? Having all of this work done. Once again, the work I've done for the past 2 years was called into question last week, right? Now the work I've done in the week since is now being called into question, right? So, I'm not really happy right now.
Well, I want to say that if it means we have to vote tonight without Jen here, then I'm not comfortable with that either. So I would be willing to either amend or withdraw the motion as stated, if it means we have to vote tonight. I'm not comfortable with that either.
So, okay, so I'm gonna, I wanted to give everyone a chance before I spoke myself as a member. I was going to make the point that David made, which is that I do think that one of the concerns about I do have other concerns about just and I actually believe that Julia does understand how big it is to rescind a vote. It's not something we do typically, and I really do believe that Julia understands that. But I do believe that rescinding the vote would put us back to voting this evening, and I am expressing that I'm very concerned about that, and that would be my number one concern about this, is that I don't think that that would be appropriate.
Okay, so, yeah.
But I want, I don't, I want, go ahead, if you have something to say. Go
That
ahead.
was not my intent, and if that is if that is what the motion is going to result in, then I will withdraw the motion.
Okay.
Are we able to amend the motion to include that we don't want to vote tonight? And
So
We only want to
I
vote on
think
the poll.
That's why I was trying to go through that, because there are all these rules about rescinding or, so I guess what I'm going to put forward is just I don't know what the motion looks like, but for me, my concern is I would like to keep to the timeline that was, I guess, I'm not even going to say the timeline. I'm going to say that I would like to be voting on June 6th, because my understanding from the information that we got tonight is that if we vote on June 6th, we can still be in, a timeline that puts us at the April 2025 town meeting, and that's what I would like to do. I don't know what that motion looks like, or if there is one, or if anyone has any other motion.
Do I need to withdraw my motion to rescind the vote? Because I
thought that you did.
did. Well, officially, because if I do not feel comfortable without the public being here.
I made a comment earlier that was not meant to be rhetorical. Is it possible to have this subcommittee that we put together design a survey, bring it here for us to vote on, and release that to the public ourselves to not incur this cost to help meet this timeline?
You're making an assumption about the methodology that's unwarranted.
What do you mean?
Yet, releasing it to the public is already runs afoul of any kind of sampling method that would make it representative of the overall electorate. So I wouldn't recommend that. We've already had surveys, the ad hoc surveys, that had no sampling statistical significance and control. If you want to actually be predictive of what the electorate's going to do, you need to have it properly designed by somebody who actually knows what they're doing.
Well, I recognize
And
that.
I don't know what that will cost. That was a spitball number with no serious data
Sure.
to do it.
No,
We should be able to get next week something that would be meaningful, and I really suggest you proceed with all of this stuff as if the poll didn't happen until we actually have a meaningful proposal to make here.
I recognize that, and I respect the work behind it. I'm just very, very concerned about this timeline.
Well, don't screw the timeline.
How are we going to do
I,
this
no,
timeline?
I actually, if I may,
Yeah.
what I'm hearing, I'd like other people to make sure that, what I'm hearing David suggest is that we pursue this June 6th date
Mm-hmm.
to take a vote here. And if the ad hoc committee has not, we pursue the date whether or not the ad hoc committee has yet achieved the goal of a poll.
Yeah.
And if that poll, let's say, comes in the middle of July, for example, that we would have moved forward with the vote, however the vote goes already, but that information in July, is what I'm hearing you say, would then inform how best to approach the public, communicate,
Right.
make decisions about how is that accurate? Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I don't know whether the rest of the ad hoc committee
I think
feels
the
like that's
public thinks
viable.
something very different. I think that they think that you guys are doing this poll and that it's going to influence our vote on June 6th. And I just want to be very clear as to what the purpose of the poll is for the committee, and then also to tell the public what the purpose is, because that's that's what I was feeling the public thought the purpose of the poll was.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
So the way that I see, I'll just repeat some of what I said last week. The way I see this whole process failing is if we take a project to the town and they turn it down. That is sunk time, it's sunk money. And there's a great example that just happened in January of that happening in Whittier Tech. 11 communities were asked to contribute, 10 of them voted it down. Only one voted for it to go forward. This is up on the North Shore.
Right.
The other example is in Ipswich. I look at that as this project failing. What I see as the goal for the project is for us to have a successful, ideally appropriation of as much state funds as we possibly can, but a successful renovation or build of the schools.
Mm-hmm.
And my fear from what I've seen in the public is that we're on a track that looks like Whittier Tech, that is really not informed by a great deal of information. And the whole purpose of the poll is to provide that information. My fear with bringing it back to this committee and then saying we're going to design something and send it out is that there are well-known biases that show up in surveys, right? I think that if we did not have a very strong sampling methodology, we would end up with people that were very much for and very much against. And then we've just wasted money and we've wasted time and we still don't have good data. So the only way that I support this moving forward is if we're committing to a process that's going to give us data that's allowing us to potentially see, are we on the path of being able to get a new school, or are we on the path of not having the investment of time, energy, and taxpayer money pay off? And so that's my overarching concern. So if we don't have the ability to collect good data that's going to inform the decisions that are made, then I would agree that it's probably not worth collecting bad data.
So your goal was to have this data for a vote, to inform our vote, or to help us inform.
Well,
was that the goal?
I think that if in the best of all possible worlds, we would have this information and then some time with coffee to think about how this information informs or doesn't inform our vote. And I think that the most meaningful information is negative information. If there's a poll that comes back that says 90% of people are against something, then we're in a position where that either is going to inform the decision that we make or not. But I think that would be good information to have before we went down a path of telling MSBA this is what we're going to do, because we've already appropriated and spent money and people's time and people's sweat and emotional
And I'm not arguing
investment.
whether or not the data is valid. I'm literally just thinking about the timeline. Like, do we want this before the vote, or do we not care about it before the vote?
Well, I think that if we had the information after the vote and it demonstrated that there wasn't public buy-in into it, then there might still be action points. They might be very different than if we got it before the vote.
Okay.
And so I think that the best time to get information would be, of course, before the vote. Is there meaning to knowing what the public temperature is for the project that's going to come before them in a year, 2 years? I think that would at least provide time for there to be an action from this group. And that might be more of a public education campaign. It might be, if this group feels that the option that we're going to vote for is the one that's best for the schools, then I think that we are obligated to do our best to make sure that it's going to be supported by the voters. Or we've just taken money and there's no benefit, right? There's $1.25 million that could have been spent on something else.
It's not, I mean, my point is just really, when do we want this data? That's
Okay.
really my point.
So,
Do we know when we want it or not? I don't know.
okay, so.
And my point is not, is the data valid or not? I
Right,
think it
so
is, but
I do,
don't, when do we
this
want
is-
it?
This is important conversation, but I also do want to move us towards action, right? Right now, there's no motion on the table. Right now, currently, our ad hoc committee has been tasked with creating this poll. I do not believe we gave you any kind of a deadline. We asked you to come back. I heard you saying, the three of you, I believe, saying that you feel like you'll have better information next meeting, because you're going to move, unless we take any action this evening, you guys are going to be moving forward. What I'm hearing in the rest of the committee is concerns about, and tell me, but is concerns about taking this vote, whether it's that if we vote on June 6th, are we somehow tying that to the polling, to the polling information or not? Are we, I mean,
Because we could have voted tonight, honestly, I thought that we were suspending the vote because we were going to get this information from the community. That's what I thought. Okay,
yes.
that's
And
why I voted.
I think if we're
on
all
the survey.
being honest, that was very, very much the nature of the conversation. I also think we have new information now this
Mhm.
evening regarding the timeline. So people are sort of reevaluating so I'm not sure whether there's a motion that needs to be made or not.
I'm also not sure.
I could make a motion. Dave Polito is going to probably murder me. I move that we vote to approve or to approve or not approve the preferred option on June 6th, whether or not we have a poll. Can I make that, whether or not we have the poll results? Can I make that motion?
I'm just thinking about
She
that.
can move whatever she wants.
No, I'm just,
You can
Yeah,
just
you
vote
can-
on 6, nobody's stopping you.
is there a second?
Yeah, second.
I was just making sure the wording was
Yeah.
making sense.
Also,
So the motion would just be that would be ensuring that was on the agenda for June 6th for a vote. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that would change nothing about what had been
Exactly, it wouldn't change
previously
anything.
tasked.
Mhm.
We would hear next week or next meeting from the ad hoc committee, who would be giving us like clearer information about what you're expecting and how, does that seem right?
Yeah, we'd at least be able to have more concrete
Right.
information.
And this motion would change nothing about the ad hoc committee, except to let you know that we are going to put that on an agenda.
Well,
if this were to
now
pass.
puts a timestamp on,
What?
it now puts a timestamp on sort of what we can attempt to do, right?
So I guess that's what I was trying to clarify, because I heard different points of view about that in the committee, that it sounded like some people felt like if the polling data, good quality polling data came in after the committee had already made some decisions, that polling data could be used in a number of ways. I think Trent spoke to that it could be used to inform next steps for the committee in terms of public education, moving forward, that kind of thing.
I think there's a good possibility that the question of cost and the question of time frame might be linked when we start getting down to nuts and bolts with potential vendors. But of course, we would be able to bring that information back to this committee. And if it was, obscene, then we don't have to vote to move forward with it. If it's reasonable,
So,
and what acceptable cost might be different if the time frame is before or after the vote, given what people think about the value of information before or after the vote.
I'm really, so the motion, I'm just going to say, the motion really doesn't speak to anything at all about the polling.
It really, no.
Right, the motion is really something. Anybody else have anything to say?
Just one more clarifying question, right? If we don't make this June 6th deadline, that's when we start getting into having to worry about these costs on the bottom?
That's my understanding, Eric, does that seem?
Right, if we have to go to the
Yeah.
2 months more, then we start to get into trouble with costs. Both the architects and OPM felt like this revised PSR submittal, we would be okay. It shortens the schematic design
Right.
time for the
Oh,
for
definitely.
the architects, but they're gonna be pencils down until we do anything anyway, so.
Can I
It's
ask
pencils, but-
the ad hoc, the committee, the three of you? I mean, I guess I just want to feel for, like, do you all feel like next week you're going, or next meeting, like, do you all feel like next week, next meeting you're going to have, I know it's hard to predict the future, but like, that's your goal, is to have somewhat clearer information for us about timeline, cost? That,
I think an approach to this that might make everybody more comfortable is if we were to put on the agenda that we could vote at our next meeting, but we don't have to if we have compelling information, just so that public is available, is aware
could
that.
vote on the preferred option?
To vote on the preferred option. I know that the timeframe is making people concerned, and I don't want there to be any, like, pressing against a deadline.
Well, I would ask Eric, is there any difference from our timeline on the MSBA between voting on May 16th versus June 6th?
Voting for the preferred option?
Correct.
No.
No, I
Today's
don't.
the deadline.
Right, so we missed
So,
the deadline, but if we don't vote tonight,
Yeah.
so June 6th is our next deadline, so I
Okay.
don't know that there's a benefit.
You do have the ability to put a meeting on May 30th, if you need another meeting specifically for that topic.
We can't meet on May 30th, it's candlelight.
Candlelight.
What?
It's candlelight. We can't meet on, yeah.
All right, how about the 29th?
Right, no, your point is we could have.
Sorry, I won't
we
be
could
here. I'll
have
be
a-
at candlelight.
You'll be at
Thank
candlelight.
you.
Yeah, no, but no, your point is valid, that if we felt like,
Yeah,
but we have a meeting on the 16th.
just the committee has the ability
I-
to set another meeting. It
Right.
doesn't necessarily have to be on Thursdays.
Right, I appreciate the,
Reminder.
right, but I guess, just for clarification, there's no, once we don't vote tonight, there's no difference from the point of view of the timeline for the MSBA between the 16th and the 6th.
Right, we're staring at the revised timeline. I mean, that's really where we're at now. The top one was the original. That's basically gone if we didn't have a preferred option today to submit to the state by midnight.
Okay,
We're not going to, so
So-
preferred option schedule is where we're at. If we push beyond that, then we start getting into cost increment increases, excuse me.
okay. So it's 9:10, so I want to try to.
Oh my God, it's 9:10.
And the motion on the table is to make sure that, that this committee will vote on the preferred option on June 6th, our June 6th.
Which I think was already happening, but I don't know. Was it not?
Well, that hadn't been, I mean, in other words, Eric and I created the agenda
Okay.
2 weeks, we have, so, yes, that would have been what we would have probably done, but this is this committee saying, compelling us to do that, like, this is what we want on the agenda. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay. All right, all those in favor? That is 6 in favor. And the motion passes unanimously of the 6 members present. And I will anticipate that on our next meeting on May 16th, we will have an agenda item for a report from the ad hoc committee to update us onto where you are and give us some information. And I heard from the committee they're interested in timeline and cost, if you have any information on that. Okay.
Before we move on from this agenda item,
Yes.
can I just ask one question?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's specifically to you, Dana, just because I want to make sure that something's on the record. When I first joined the committee, you and I had a meeting, and at that meeting, I let you know where I live. Is that correct?
Yes.
And after that, did you investigate whether or not there was a conflict of interest?
Yes.
And what was your finding?
Sure, yeah, no, I did, because I have some experience with this, so I contacted the MASC regarding where the new committee member lived, and they were very, very clear with me that the definition of an abutter is quite specific, and that Trent does not meet the definition of an abutter. That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have any other questions? Okay, so next up, we have the policy subcommittee has requested the next item on the agenda, which was brought forth by the policy subcommittee, and it's an IAQ policy discussion. I'd like to start this off with a motion. Do you all have a motion?
I do, but I don't necessarily want to proceed.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Do we want to
I need to be
take a
able
quick
to-
recess and see if you have
let me
a
see
need
what
for?
We're gonna plug Vinny. Vinny has the ability to plug in directly.
Okay.
So shall we can take a quick, do you want to take a?
Is it on the
all right,
agenda?
We're going to take a 5-minute recess for a technical issue. We will.
I'm freezing. Is anyone else like
It's so
freezing?
cold.
Can we close?
ready to reconvene. All right.
My assistant.
Okay,
even
yeah,
All right, and we are back in session, and, yeah,
you.
so if you could please start with a motion.
Sure. I'd like to propose this motion. I move that the school committee tasks the policy subcommittee and the superintendent to draft a policy. Can you hear me okay? Yeah.
I can hear you, but it couldn't hurt to be a little bit louder.
Okay.
I know, I don't think
Yeah.
that's on particularly loud.
Is there an adjustment to that? I move that the school committee tasks the policy subcommittee and the superintendent to draft a policy for monitoring and maintaining our school facilities for optimal healthy living and learning. This would include IAQ, water and surfaces. And I'll elaborate on that further in the
Do I
presentation.
have a second?
Second.
Second by Trent Honda.
Can I make an amendment to the motion? Or front? No?
So I hear someone offering an amendment. Go ahead.
Just, that is not what we decided on in the subcommittee. That's not what we wrote and what we voted to move to the committee.
So can you offer the amendment?
I'm offering the amendment, okay. It was simply, does the full school committee wish to I move that the school committee task the policy subcommittee with creation of an IAQ policy.
Right.
Just as simple as that. That was
So your
what
amendment.
I understood as secretary.
So your amendment is to replace the text with, I move that the school committee task the policy subcommittee with creation of an IAQ policy?
Yeah, just full stop.
Okay. Do I have a second to that amendment?
Second.
Second by Amy to that amendment. So at this point, we are just discussing the amendment. Julia, would you like to speak to that?
I'm just concerned because we had a lot of dissension on the committee and in the subcommittee. And what was decided when I rewatched that meeting several times and I was the secretary, was simply that we are not recommending this, but that we are asking the full school committee if there is an appetite to move forward with this. That's what I understood. And I know that this is the third time it's been brought to the full school committee. So I think this language it's a little bit leading. Like if you vote against it or if you have a question, it means you might not want optimal healthy living and learning, and obviously we all want that. But the motion, as I understood it, that the subcommittee voted on was simply whether or not the school committee would task us with creating some kind of policy like this. That's what I understood.
Okay.
And that's why I amended
Okay. So
or moved to
Does
amend. I've
anyone
done a
have-
lot of motions tonight, so
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sorry.
does anybody have discussion on the amendment that is before us?
Yeah, I would respectfully request that you wait until you see Professor, the Harvard Professor for Healthy Buildings talk, which I'm about to play.
We did, didn't we, in the subcommittee?
I didn't.
But that doesn't have anything to do with the motion.
Right.
Well,
Her-
it
her
does
motion
in-
is, her motion is an amendment
Yeah.
to this, so, so,
The reason why I'd prefer not to narrow the scope back to just IAQ is healthy buildings are more than just IAQ, that's all.
Okay.
And I think if you hear his talk, it may sway you to broaden the definition.
I am concerned that this policy subcommittee has brought this, or this subject has been brought to the school committee 3 times now, and it has not been voted to move forward. So I am concerned at this wording, that if someone were to question it or vote against it, then it would look like we do not want to we're voting against maintaining our school facilities for optimal healthy living and learning. But what we're voting on,
We have voted against that,
Yes,
basically,
but what we're
never
voting
seconding a
on-
motion to actually fix it, but.
and I'm also concerned that this is not what was agreed upon in the policy
okay,
subcommittee.
I'm going to let someone else speak. Yep, David.
Who's the chair of the policy?
The chair.
David.
Jen is not
the
here.
reason I asked is my discussion was going to be, since this is posted on our agenda and David is presenting, that it doesn't necessitate that it is coming from the policy subcommittee as a recommendation. But since he's the chair, it could look that way, even though the discussion currently is that there is sort of disagreement within the subcommittee.
So right now, though, all we're discussing is the amendment. So
Right, but I mean,
whether
it's,
to change that to the amended motion that Julia made.
well, I mean, again, if you've, you know, given this space on the agenda with the presentation, like, you know, normally you hear out the presentation and then make your, you know, we make our decision based on that, right?
So to be clear, the policy subcommittee asked for this agenda item, and I asked the chair of policy if they had any information, and this is what was given as an exhibit.
Just to be clear, that's the opposite answer I wanted you to give me?
So to be
But
clear.
that's what
'cause-
happened.
Can you,
mean,
I can say what I perceived on the
But
committee.
that's what happened. I mean,
I mean, no, I understand, but I was trying to make this easy. It's 9:30.
No, it's definitely not easy. It's not easy. So as a subcommittee, David presented this as the chair. This is all obviously public.
Yeah.
Presented this item as the chair. Jen did not second it. I seconded it because the only reason I did, I wanted to bring it to the full school committee to see if it's even worth us having 9.5 hours of discussion as a subcommittee.
Okay.
That was my intent. I cannot speak for Jen. I cannot speak for
Right.
David.
So right now, again, we're just asking, we had this motion, it was seconded. I have an amendment to that motion, it was seconded. We need
And
to,
one more clarifying question.
sure.
The amendment you just read was the amendment, was the motion agreed upon and voted on by the subcommittee?
Yeah, that's correct. Sorry.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. Is there further discussion on this? Okay, so we're voting on the amendment, which is to change the wording up there in its entirety to say, I move that the school committee tasks the policy subcommittee with the creation of an IAQ policy. Okay?
Got it.
All right, so this is just on the amendment to the proposed motion. All right? All right, all those in favor? Okay, that is 5,
Yeah, that's,
6, all right, all right.
vote no.
So that is unanimous of the 6 members present, and the motion passes. David, would you like to speak to the motion?
Sure. Why do we need a healthy facilities learning policy? Or IAQ? Let's narrow the language to IAQ, because we don't have one, is the short answer. The longer answer can be provided by Professor Joseph Allen far more eloquently than I can. So let me.
It's quite an honor to be invited to hopefully set the stage for a rich conversation and question and answer session on the topic of environmental resilience and specifically the role of buildings, right? As we think about outdoor air pollution, of course, the dirty secret of outdoor air pollution is it penetrates indoors. And because we spend the vast majority of our life indoors, even as that outdoor air pollution concentration is reduced as it comes inside, the majority of your exposure to outdoor air pollution occurs indoors.
So I hope that was a sort of good primer for what the issues are associated with indoor air quality. I repeated this particular graph. What's interesting about it is like the moment up until very recently, the building standard that was in the NSBA building standard was ASHRAE 62, so ASHRAE 62.1. And I was quite frankly panicked that we would end up building schools, not just ours, but others in the state, that are worse than in 1905. Turns out that ASHRAE last year passed ASHRAE 241, which this axis here is litres per minute per person in the room. ASHRAE 241 now is up at 20. And it's only when there's an elevated risk, so think flu season or another pandemic. But if you built your schools, the next lot of schools, to this standard, you're basically going to repeat what we just went through the next time there's any kind of challenge or any kind of spike in infections. And I'm not talking about just COVID, any of the influenzas or RSV or measles for that matter, anything that's airborne. The other thing about what he was talking about measuring CO2 is not just a matter of a measure of ventilation. And by the way, the report on Cutler had that the architects had said that they felt there was a need for CO2 controlled ventilation in whatever the design is. The question is how much ventilation, and that's dependent on the context. Are we in the middle of a pandemic? You need a lot more ventilation. If you're early in spring, maybe not. Maybe you can rattle down. So it's something that's got variable capacity. But the other thing that Professor Allen has shown with this research, which was published in Lancet, is the CO2 concentration has an enormous effect on cognition, enormous effect on test scores. And I'll let you. I think you've got printouts of this. So that's very significant. Another significant finding that's just been published that I found fascinating is that the CO2 level, elevated CO2 levels actually makes the COVID virus more infectious in its own right. So not only is elevated CO2 indicative of poor ventilation and a marker that you can track and decide, do I want to go into this room because the CO2 level is so high that clearly the ventilation is poor and I'm exposing myself to whatever the aerosols are in the school. One example of which, by the way, was I went to the high school for the vote and arrived just as they were gabbling it together. Went in with my CO2 monitor. It was 2,300 already. And 2,300 versus Boston Public Schools starts all of their defensive activities of opening windows, turning on filter boxes at 1,000. So 2,300, and there was potentially 2 hours of meeting. I walked out of the meeting because, short of deciding to stay for all that time masked, that room was going to get up to probably 4,000 before the end of that meeting. So you're exposing yourself to whoever was in that room and their whatever issues they've got. But this, I think, is extremely interesting, since we're an institution that's trying to produce better scholastic results. We stick kids for MCAS for 3 hours in a room at a time, even 4 hours actually recently, in badly ventilated rooms. And so we're handicapping them by not having good ventilation. And for that matter, measuring what the ventilation is. One really good point that Jen, who's not here, made at that meeting was there's not enough measurement. And to that end, Boston Public Schools made a really significant investment in putting sensors in every single classroom and reporting them out in a public dashboard that you can drill down to the individual classroom. So you know exactly where all of these parameters are: carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, relative humidity, particulates, So some of the things, the policy, the IAQ policy could incorporate are all of these kinds of parameters. Some of this goes beyond indoor air quality, clearly water, but most of them would fall into the category of indoor air quality. His final schematic at the end that showed all of the points of a dial of all the different factors that go into a healthy building is what I was really trying to amend the original intent of IAQ to broaden it to all of the health factors that go into our buildings or are affected by the nature of our buildings, which is a little bit broader. Indoor air quality would be a great start. So what are the benefits of having a healthy learning policy, which is what IAQ is all about? Develop a health-focused culture in our schools, building awareness of what we've learnt particularly from this last pandemic. Put in place a supportive organisation structure and metrics to enable management of the health and learning factors. Right now we don't measure, and therefore we can't manage. So I think that's fundamental in all engineering and science. What you can't measure, you can't manage. So we should decide what do we want to measure and why, and what could we do with the measurements once we've made them. And of course, improving the students, teachers and staff's health and reducing the absenteeism caused by not managing these parameters. And improve learning as measured in test scores. I think that's what we're all here about. EPA makes free a very interesting mobile app that link will take you to that is a facilitator of the complete inventory across your school. They have a whole program to encourage schools to actually get a handle on this and then to manage it. And it's definitely a continuous improvement kind of thing. It's not an absolute, you've got to be here tomorrow. But if you don't measure, you don't know where you are. So you have no ability to really move the ball forward all the time and make good decisions financially as to which improvements are going to produce what kind of meaningful result. There's very different kinds of investments that can be made. Some are very modest, and some of it can be quite expensive. But measurement is a great starting point. So that's really all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to have discussion. I guess you could stay there or you can sit down, whichever.
Sure. Yeah,
you
I'm
choose.
happy to vacate.
Okay, so I'm going to start with questions, clarifying questions. Does anyone have anything, clarifying question regarding the motion, what's being asked for, or any sort of unclarity about that, and then we'll move on to discussion.
Yeah, I guess the first thing is, so the motion is asking, is it asking for the school committee as a whole to be pursuing this
I think
policy,
the
or-
motion, which was stated in the affirmative, so that motions, to make them easier, was to have this committee, the school committee, task policy with the creation of an indoor air policy.
I
indoor air
think to be
quality
clear,
policy.
it wasn't asking to task us. We weren't recommending it. It was
I
seeing if.
I understand that. That's why I was saying it was made in the affirmative, that it sounds to me like the request from policy was, does the school committee want us to pursue this or not? But generally, motions are made in the affirmative. Is that your question, David? Looks like we're ready to move on to discussion.
Are we moved on to discussion, or?
Yep.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
please.
Go ahead.
So we just spent, the last 2 hours talking about the new building projects that we're talking about. And we're talking about significant investments. And, I'm on the capital finance subcommittee, and we recently had a discussion around what capital projects would we recommend to this committee? And there's not really guidance from this committee as to how to make those decisions. So, the decisions that we made were, first, how are we going to make this decision? And we decided that the safety of anything that had to do with safety was priority, right? And so I look at the potential introduction of a policy around, healthy environments as something that is pretty consistent with the investment that we're making in our infrastructure through all of these building projects that we're proposing, but also something that could just be as simple as guidance of, when a capital project is being decided and there's more than one option, the healthy option, or the option that is considering these healthy components, is the guidance that the committee would offer. So I think that if we didn't have the MSBA project on the table right now, this would look like a large capital project, but it could just be the right time to provide guidance on how to make decisions while an investment's already being made. I'll give time to others.
Other discussion? I'm going to jump into the question. David, or anyone, can you tell me what other school district IAQ policies you've reviewed and what others you have found in our area?
Actually had ChatGPT drew up a...
So I'm going to just be real honest with you, is that I did a search and I can't find any.
I'm just trying to think. There was at least one. I think I shared it with Eric months ago, probably over a year ago.
A school district?
Yeah.
So, because I just
did.
I just want to point out that the Boston Public Schools, which you highlighted, do not have an indoor air quality policy. What they have is an initiative that they used COVID ESSER funds to fund an initiative, and they did do those things that you said, but they do not have a policy.
They went a different route. What they did is...
I'm just making that, because what you're asking for is a policy, so I'm asking you about...
Yeah, let me finish.
Okay.
I think they have a de facto policy, because when they measure, and when they do, there's a handbook for every teacher as to what they do as a result of that. It's quite comprehensive. So that, I think, goes a step beyond policy. It actually shaped how they operate, and I'd be perfectly happy if we had that in lieu of a policy, actually. But we have neither. We have no measurement. We have no procedures. And they did, and they and I would point out their schools. There's been comparative studies done that district had 1/3 of the infection rates during COVID that we and a lot of our peer schools had. No, I think there were multiple variables involved in achieving that outcome.
So my point was really around policy, though, that they did not create an indoor air quality policy.
No, as I said,
on the MASC, I searched MASC, I did some other research, and I didn't find one. There is one from Westboro, and it is so generic as to be something like, we'll do the best to have healthy schools or something. I mean, it's very generic, and then has, some information about construction, like it.
No, I do recall one that was very specific.
Okay, well, but you don't know where it was from.
I don't recall, because it was quite a long time ago.
Okay, Amy?
That's sort of my question, is this motion feels very vague, and it's one of those things, right, where we're like, of course, we all want great indoor air quality, we want to reduce illness and for our students and staff. I think we've had this conversation before. I don't know that that body is the right body to make those decisions. Like, that we have people in place and guidelines in place that we've been working with so far. I'm looking at some of the things you're bringing to us. Are we talking about the potential of like putting monitors in every classroom, deciding what a teacher does if a monitor reaches a certain level? Like, it just feels very in the weeds and broader than the policy committee, subcommittee, and this committee. I guess I just have,
I mean, we do get in the weeds on child restraints. I mean, it's not like policy doesn't touch the practical day-to-day of running a school.
We don't really. I mean, I don't think we did the child restraints because it was determined that it wasn't.
Well, that particular, maybe that's a bad example. But
So I think for me, I have the same concerns as Amy, and also I'm going to have 0 friends on this committee after this, because I feel like I've just probably going to have offended everyone in this room at this point. But I really don't think this, and I've told you, I do not think that this policy is the purview of the policy subcommittee. I think we voted on it as a whole school committee several times. I think it is a very deserved passion project. You are passionate about it, you are interested in it, and it is something that you would love to see in the schools, and I'm all for that. Like, I have a lot of passion projects and things that I want to see in the schools, but I don't think the policy subcommittee is the right place for it, and that is why I wanted, but I don't think that you would listen to the policy subcommittee if it was just the 2 of us. So that is why I wanted to bring it to the full body to decide. And of course, I'm a good team member. I will do what the body decides. That was my thinking in seconding the motion to bring it to this full body, if that makes sense. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
if you don't feel it's appropriate for the subcommittee, where would we ever?
I think it's for Eric, and it's for the facilities people. I mean, I think that when we make the hiring and firing decisions, when we make the capital allocations, when we are upgrading the schools, I mean, I think that's where it lives. You know, that's me. I mean, I feel like I've argued with everyone in my entire life today, but I'm just going to talk about like how I am feeling.
I understand.
And my position and my viewpoint. But I think I'm not, and that's the thing that I think gets lost in this is people think, oh, I don't think that we should have healthy, you know, I can just see what's going to be on Facebook. Julia doesn't think we should have healthy air at school. She wants to suffocate our children. And you know what? Fine. Like, obviously, I don't think that. But I think it gets skewed that way. And that's what I'm concerned about. But really, I think it's important. But I also am looking at precedent for other schools that have it. And I'm also looking at all of the different projects we have in front of us. And I'm just considering all the different variables. But for me, as a subcommittee member, and I am not being able to talk because it's so late.
it is late.
But that is where I stand on this, and I leave it up to everyone else.
Thank you. Other comments? We do need a motion, because it's 10 o'clock.
We have a motion.
No, we need a motion at 10 o'clock.
Oh, hi.
All right, so.
I move to extend the meeting by 10 minutes.
Okay, all those in favor?
How fast can Vinny talk?
Oh, no.
I mean, do you want me to?
We can make another motion. All those in favor? Okay, the motion passes and we're extended by 10 minutes. Doesn't mean somebody can't make a motion later on.
Great.
So, the current motion on the table is a motion that the school committee tasks the policy committee with the creation of an IAQ policy. I have one more comment. Does anyone else have a comment that they'd like to make?
I do. I just will say I was listening to the discussion, and I agree with Julia. That was the motion that came out of the committee.
That is the current motion on the table.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to take my turn as a member. I'm going to just say that this body, this school committee, has taken 2 votes on indoor air quality, similar. We took those 2 votes in January of 2023, and both votes were no. One of them was to direct policy to study an indoor air quality. Another one was about an indoor air quality bill, so it was related but not the same. My concern is that I think we as a school district are required to follow the rules and regulations set by the state, and I think those are really important. I have said, and I've said it to David in person, when it comes to the new building, I am going to really want to be assured that that new building is going to have top-notch air quality. That being said, I think us trying to create an indoor air quality policy, which does not appear to me to exist in any other local schools, seems a path on which we are likely to create something that will hamstring us and cause us the potential to have an extraordinary amount of money or just complications. I really would prefer to leave this as an operational issue, that our district is required to meet the guidelines and laws of the state. I don't feel that we need a policy. I also am really glad that you brought it to the committee, because I think it's important to have our members heard and have the committee get to take a vote. Does anyone else have discussion? Anyone we haven't heard from? David?
The one last thing I could just sort of think of is, excuse me, if you were to put something like this in place, right? I would think that the thought process there, even if you didn't make the policy so stringent that we automatically sort of make all of our current 70-year-old buildings, you know, uninhabitable by our own policy, I think it just from the conversation we've had tonight alone, it would sort of hamstring us, only in the fact that at some point you'd have to start working to maximize the effectiveness as the policy, right? So at that point, if we're trying to build a new school building, then you'd have to build the bigger school building, because then you wouldn't be actually adhering to you'd only be adhering to this policy at the new higher standards with the, you know, with the smaller building. So at that point, well, then you get into equity issues, and are we actually not, you know, meeting our own policy? While I see the intent, I see far more ways that we can end up tripping ourselves over, you know, trying to take these positive steps, you know, and that's sort of my fear in bringing it, you know, bringing it to, you know, a district-wide policy. And at the same time, you can use it to, you know, push an agenda too.
Okay. One more, Jen?
So at the last finance committee, we discussed
Policy?
What?
Oh, finance committee, sorry. I thought you were talking about our committee.
Finance, I promise, Julia. We discussed projects that we needed to do at the schools. They included things like fixing windows that were falling out of buildings, and, you know, resealing windows, and there were several others that were like literally serious dangers, like a kid could get hit by a window falling out of a building. And we're not able to pay for all of those projects. I think trying to update the ventilation systems at the 3 existing schools would not be cheap. I don't think it's a good fiscal decision, particularly with a new school coming down the road. And I don't think it's a decision that the community will support. Because it seems like we would be throwing money at a problem that is not as large as some of the ones we're already dealing with.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
I just want to say that I very much agree with what you just said. And I think that the idea of elucidating a prescriptive policy is probably beyond the expertise of this room, definitely. I do think that there is room for guiding principles in how we undertake managing our buildings. And I do think that, there's evidence that that impacts health and impacts learning. And, I shared, I think probably while you were on the ride over here, that we made the decision based upon safety at that meeting, right? And so I think that that was a guiding principle that we decided upon. And so I think that, the 9 pillars of a healthy building that were up there are probably all things that we could agree that we would want our kids to have. And so I think that while focusing on one environmental, exposure, and being very prescriptive about it is potentially problematic. Providing guidance to the superintendent and facilities around, the priorities that this group sees, I think is important, because I understand like the state laws and whatnot. The laws are not always they're not always at the head of science. So for example, it was like last month that the EPA banned asbestos. It was literally last month. How many years have we been paying for, you think I'm joking, look it up. Yeah. Asbestos. And there's still a type that's permitted.
I'm actually going to interrupt you only
Yeah.
because we are
I apologize.
Because it's, no, because it's 10:10 and we only had a motion for 10 minutes. And so unless I hear another motion, we're going to be adjourned.
Don't we have to extend just a vote?
That's what I'm asking for, is if you want to have a motion to extend the meeting.
I move that we extend our meeting to vote on this proposal. Policy.
Motion. Second.
Okay.
I've said the word motion 9,000 times.
All right, all those in favor? Okay, that is unanimous and the motion passes. Are we ready to vote? Okay, the motion on the table is it's in the affirmative to approve, to task the policy subcommittee with the creation of an indoor air quality policy.
I don't think that's accurate. I think it was to task the subcommittee together with the superintendent.
It was literally, the question is, does the full school committee wish to task the policies? I just tried to write down the transcript. And then and Jen said, I move that the school committee task the policy subcommittee with creation of an IAQ policy, and then we abide by their decision. But I cut that
And
part
we,
off.
And we amended, and that's what I have written down. So
So we didn't include the superintendent in it.
a yes vote means yes, you would like to task policy with creation of an IAQ policy. No vote means you do not. Everyone clear? All those in favor? No? All right, those opposed? That is 1, 2, 3, 4. Those abstain? 3 abstentions. Okay, so 0 in favor, 4 opposed, and 3 abstentions, correct? All right, the motion fails. At this point, we still have not heard our FY24 Q3 financial forecast. If we wanted to hear that, we need to have a motion.
I
can be like 3 minutes if you want.
Okay, what, and my recommendation is,
All of it and go to the
please
last
make the
slide.
motion for more minutes than we need, so
I
that we don't have
move-
to keep doing this.
I move that we extend the meeting to 10:30, the hard cutoff at 10:30. Mid-sentence, we're out of here.
Second.
Second.
Those in favor? That is 5 in
Little
favor.
Debbie style.
Those opposed? Abstentions?
Abstaining.
All right, well, I got 5 in favor, and the rest of you didn't vote. Okay,
Yeah,
and the
that'd be
motion
difficult to
passes. Okay, go.
Subcommittee.
Huh? Well, just, I skipped it because,
Literally
Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks.
The lights go back.
I'm sorry?
The lights are back.
Fine, I'll figure it out. I'll find it.
They know it's time to go
Meridian?
home.
It's like, wake up, right, wake up, wake up.
At the corner of Cherry,
Yeah, I'll drop you at your house.
I'm 2
That's okay.
blocks.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's on my way. If I can even like see the road, because I'm so tired. Texting my daughter.
Gonna try to do this as quick as I can. So tonight, I'm here to present the FY24 year-end forecast as of quarter 3, ending March 31st, 2024, and then we are gonna vote on 2 budget transfer requests. Included in your exhibit, there are, included in the agenda, there are 3 exhibits. One's the presentation, one's the detailed account listing, and one's a summary. I'm not gonna go through the full presentation because it's pretty late. If you have any questions on the summary, please let me know. A lot hasn't changed since our last forecast. I'm just gonna grab my water. Ultimately, I am projecting that we are going to end the year with about $1.5 million left. Overall, that is only 3.6% total remaining at the end of the year. If you think about that in a different way, we were 96.4% accurate. This is the DAC. If you look at the DESI category, I am only projecting 1 DESI category to end the year in a deficit. It is our instructional materials and equipment. And second, we are right on par with our operations and maintenance, ending at about $702,000. Just to take the 3 highs and lows, our biggest thing affecting us, just like it is every year, is our vacancies. We're totaling 506,000. We have received an additional 250,000 in circuit breaker. I am projecting about 152,000 in transportation left over. Our ESP contract has cost us, for actuals this year, about 136,000 over. We are experiencing high increases in our custodial maintenance and supplies, and for our utilities projections, as everyone's seen with their household bills, our utilities have gone up drastically. I'm not going to go through every single slide. As I said, I'm literally going to jump to the budget transfer request, which if I did all this, it would take me about 30 minutes, so sorry. This is the summary that's also in the exhibit that I mentioned. So tonight, as I mentioned, we are only asking for 2 transfers. It's $76,000 to bail out the current deficit in our instructional materials and equipment line. The majority of this came from additional student and staff devices that Alan had to purchase about 2 months ago. And last is approximately, or exactly, $100,000 to fund the operations and maintenance account. Like I said before, I'm estimating that we end with about $700. This gives us the ability to adapt to anything that might happen between now and the end of the school year. I know I didn't give you much detail, but if you have any questions, I can certainly answer them.
questions? And you did give us a lot of detail in the exhibits.
Yeah. I did break out everything, even in it's like a $6 item when somebody did an extra 15 minutes of work one day, so that's even included, but I'm not going to go through it all.
All right,
I know that was very quick. I was trying to.
thank you. Mr. Secretary, do you have a motion?
Sure. The Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee, I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee approve the FY24 operating expense budget transfers as recommended herein by the Assistant Superintendent of Finance Administration and as presented on the previous slide entitled Transfers Requested Quarter 3.
Second.
Second by Jen Carr. Vinny, can you put the previous slide up just so that we have it?
Yep.
So we know what we're voting on.
This
Anybody
one?
have any questions? All right. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor? That is unanimous of the 7 members present, and the motion passes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
It's 4.5
One
minutes.
more, Vinny?
Say it again?
Aren't there 2 motions?
There was just one.
It was in
one
one.
motion just for the transfer. That's it.
Okay.
There were 2 transfers in one.
2
motion.
transfers within
covered
one
by
motion. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
It's getting colder.
Sure you don't
So
have.
Freezing.
I would like,
Motion to adjourn.
we did not do subcommittees. Please send me your preferences and don't, just send them to me, and so that we'll have somewhere, hopefully we can do it super quick next time if you send your preferences.
I don't even know what I just said to you guys.
Or if you have anything that you have to
It made
get out.
sense.
One quick one.
Yep.
Tomorrow's Lunch Hero Day. Next week's Teacher Appreciation Week. Wednesday is Nurse Appreciation Week. This past Monday was Principals Appreciation Day, so there's a lot happening for appreciation around the schools. So send out some thank yous, and I know our staff's working hard and really appreciates it, getting a little note here and there. So I want to thank all of our teachers, staff, principals, everybody for the work that they've done this year. It's been a really good, high-quality year, so thank you.
Thank you. If anybody has any topics for future meetings, send them to me in an email, and I will take a motion.
I move to adjourn.
We have a
Second.
second. Second by Julie Campbell. All those in favor?
10:20.
At 10:20, yes.